moving here because I thought so. I wasn't sure when you said, okay. All right. I would like to call to order the May 19, 2026 meeting of the West Palm Beach Planning Board. Madam Clerk, if you kindly call the roll.
Jason Lakow.
Present.
Thank you. Gene Marseille Jr.
Present.
Patrick Mayfield.
Present.
Will Corrente.
In attendance.
Stephen Mayans.
Present.
Peter Pivko.
Here.
Deborah Rain. Here. Sam Fish.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Next order of business is approval of the April 21, 2026 minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review them? Are there any changes or corrections? And if not, I'm looking for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion. Have we a second? We need a second. Thank you. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is report of the planning staff.
Good evening, Stephanie Gregory, Planning and Zoning Administrator. So we do have one case that was approved since your last planning board meeting, and that was for a major amendment for the CPD with waivers for the Pink Bird Car Wash for the on-site signs, and that was approved by the planning board on March 17th, and the City Commission passed the resolution on April 27th. I also wanted to note that we do have two cases tonight that will be continued to the July planning board meeting. That is item C3, the rezoning for 807 and 901 North Flagler, and then also the updates to the DMP urban regulations.
Mr. Thomas, will we need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else to report?
That's it.
Okay, before I take it, let's go ahead and make a motion, please, whether we can move these two cases to the July 21, 2026 planning board meeting.
Can I ask a question of staff?
Can I, oh, do you want to do it
Prior to
before we
the
start?
motion?
Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely. Stephanie, a question.
Just wanted some clarification. I understand it was publicly advertised.
You're back at the podium.
If you could expound on the reason for the delay of the, I guess, D.1 item, the DMP regulations. Just, I know that there was a, listened to, it was a productive meeting at the DAC last week. I was curious what recommendations the Downtown Action Committee were having you guys look at that could be briefly expounded upon. Perhaps, I'm assuming you guys are working on revisions to the plan, given that we're postponing it for 2 months.
Yes, good evening. Ana Maria Ponte, Development Services Director. Yes, the item was presented to the Downtown Action Committee last Wednesday. The board actually voted to recommend approval and move it forward to the next stage, that will be the planning board. However, there were some concerns raised, some questions, some recommendations, and there were some concerns raised by some of the commissioners also regarding the process in terms of big picture items like the congestion generated by the downtown, the increases in development capacity, and how the city is addressing those concerns. So we decided it was prudent to continue it for a couple of months so we can address those concerns and be sure that we bring back to you all the information that is needed for you to take the decision about it.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, I'm still looking for a motion then to continue these two cases to July 21, 2026 planning board meeting.
I'll move that item C3, DAC case 26-01, rezoning for 807 and 901 North Flagler, and item D1, CRC case number 2603, updates to the DMPU regulations, be continued to the July 21st planning board meeting.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Next on our agenda are remarks by the chairperson, of which I have none. Next is a declaration of ex parte communications, and let me begin by disclosing that with regard to case number 2035, I received numerous emails from members of the Northwood Harbor Association as well as neighboring property owners. These emails have been made a part of the record in this case. I also spoke by telephone to 2 board members of the Northwood Harbor Association. With regard to the other one, we're not reaching today. So despite these communications, I'll be making my decisions tonight solely upon the evidence presented here. Other than that, what I've disclosed, I've had no other ex parte communications, received no written communications, conducted no investigations, have made no site visits, and received no expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made a part of the record. Sam, why don't we begin with you?
So planning board case 2035, I did have a meeting with the Northwood Harbor Neighborhood Association regarding the proposed project. I also had a Zoom with the applicant and did receive a number of emails as well. I will be making my decision solely based on evidence presented here today. Other than what I disclosed, I've had no additional ex parte communications. I have not received any other written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made any site visits, and I have not received any expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communication be made part of the record.
Thank you, Deborah.
Okay. I have received several emails regarding planning board case 2035. However, any decision I make this evening will be based on the evidence presented. As relates to the remainder of the agenda, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Peter?
Similarly, with case number 2025, I met with the Northwood Community Members Association quite some time ago now, and also acknowledged receipt of dozens and dozens of emails. With the rest of the agenda, I have had no ex parte communications. I've received no written communications, didn't conduct any investigations, made a site visit, or received expert opinions. I've requested these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you. Will?
As to the matter 2035, I did have a conversation with the property owners' representatives several months ago, and as well as various phone calls with the Northwood Harbor Neighborhood Association. I received dozens of emails, which I've forwarded to the city to be made part of the record. I will make my decision this evening based on the evidence provided. Aside from that, I've had not conducted an investigation, I have not made a visit, and I have not received expert opinions. As to other matters on the agenda this evening, I have not had ex parte communications, I have not received written communications, I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communication be made part of the record.
Thank you so much. Patrick?
With respect to Planning Board Case 2035, I also took part in a Zoom meeting with the applicant last month, as well as a phone call with the Neighborhood Association. And I also received approximately a dozen emails from various folks that I read but did not respond to. With respect to all other matters, I have had no ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. And with respect to 2035, my decision this evening will base solely upon testimony presented at this hearing.
Thank you, Gene.
Regarding case 2035, I did receive numerous emails which have been made part of the record. My decisions today will be based on the evidence presented. As to all other matters on the agenda, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you so much. Jason?
As to the matter Planning Board Case 2035, I have met with the Northwood Harbor Association, Angela Ogburn. I have received a dozen emails that have all been submitted for the record as well. I have not had any ex parte communications outside of what's been disclosed. I have not received any written communications outside of what's been disclosed. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions, and I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. My decision today will be made solely on the evidence presented.
Thank you so much. Okay, that then brings us to the swearing in of speakers. Would everyone who plans to speak or offer testimony this evening please stand up and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful? Yes. Okay. For those of you that have not filled out a card, we need you to do so, and give it please to the clerk. Okay, next on the agenda are continued cases, and we will begin with Planning Board Case Number 2035.
Good evening, Chair and board members. Thank you for your consideration this evening. For Alba Reserve, case number PD 24120054. Alba Reserve's team consists this evening Representative Matthew Marks from Alba. He's a senior vice president. We have local architect Keith Spina, Blue Road Development, Shane from Flynn Engineering, our civil engineer, Brian from Simmons and White, and myself, landscape architect John Schmidt, and agent for the applicant. I've got about a 20-minute presentation for you. We're going to break it down in a few sections here go over the developer and architect, the location and context, our overall request, an overview, and then a summary and closing. Kenneth Baboon was the original developer for this area, was the first to undertake a large development early in June. He executes and completes his commitments to the community. We're in the final stages of completing Alba, looking for a CEO in June. And he's commissioned for Alba Reserve a world-class architect, Carlos Ott. He's most famous for winning international design competitions, probably most famous for his the Opera House in Paris and the Burj Hotel in Dubai. And there's a list of about 20 other notable locations on the side. But it's been a treat being able to collaborate with such a renowned architect. The location for the property is 4700 to 4806 North Flagler Drive. The site consists of two sites. It's located between 47th and 48th Street. It's two parcels consisting of 2.21 acres. It has 17 existing residences on there, one single-family house, and 16 multifamily. And there's a little excerpt of Alba that's getting built right now. To the east, of course, we have the intercoastal highway, or intercoastal waterway. To the west, we have single and multifamily. To the north is the Flotilla Club, and to the south is Alba multifamily. That's 55 units. The site land use and zoning is MF32, which is the highest density that the city has for residential districts. It's also true of the surrounding zoning. It also received, the site and others received the North Flagler Overlay District that acknowledges the height through this corridor. So the MF32 was intensive, and the Flagler Overlay did as well. A summary of our request this evening is a rezoning from the property from multifamily MF32 to a residential plan development with 71 units. The plan developments allow inclusive incentives. What those incentives are, they're the relaxing of height, setbacks, lot dimensions, lot requirements. They allow the increased density and floor area ratio, and as long as they don't exceed the comprehensive plan policy 1.1.3. We're also asking for a formal level 2 site plan approval, review with 5 waivers. Those waivers are the minimum acreage for an RPD, submerged land density, side setbacks, separation of access points, drive aisle widths within the parking garage. And this application was submitted December of 2024, so it is exempt from the North Flagler Overlay District overlay that was just adopted. And I think you've seen other projects lately that were also exempt. Again, the site consists of the single-family homes and 16 condos. We're proposing 71 state-of-the-art residential units. That's 32 units to the acre at 30 stories. The tower units range from 3,400 to 3,700 square feet. They are pass-through units east-west, and what I mean from that is that you have sunrise to sunset through your whole unit. It also has a unique design of 11 townhomes that range from 34 to 5,100 square feet with direct intercoastal frontage. So the image to the left here is finishing up of Alba and the streetscape that's happening there. The image to the right is the proposed Alba Reserve with the 11 townhouses with direct frontage, and then you're seeing the Alba podium with the tower in the background. So that's the Alba Reserve image there. The typical floor plan consists of 3 areas. We have a podium that's located directly to Flagler Drive. We have the townhomes, again, along the intracoastal, and then we have the residential building in the center. So highlighted in these areas are some renderings that you would see. So as you enter off Flagler Drive, you will be going past our active use, past the guardhouse, continuing on to the reception and drop-off, which is over here, and then to the right would be the townhomes. The amenity deck, which is level 7. So on the bottom here, we have to the west to the 2 bottom images are the amenity deck on the west side, so the sunset. And the upper image is the townhouse and terrace units that are above the townhomes. Circulation is from Flagler Drive to the guardhouse. Once you go through the guardhouse, you can proceed forward, make a left, and go into the parking garage and park your vehicle, or proceed forward to reception. You can go to reception or extend to your private townhomes, which have garages. On the exit, you can also move forward to the garage after a drop-off or go to Flagler Drive. Pedestrian access, there's the 2 yellow points there. We have a north and south. They give you direct access to the streetscape. The design results here, again, this is on the west side, or the left side here, is a western elevation. So you have the podium from Flagler Drive, and from Alba, you would see the podium on this side. We have the townhomes that would be along the intercoastal. That would be the east elevation. As we proceed forward, this is the east facade. This is what you would see from the intercoastal, the townhomes in those locations, and then the podium directly adjacent to Flagler Drive, and then the residential. We submitted this on December of 2024 prior to the overlay. Over the past 2 years, there's been considerable design changes. These modifications represent substantial design changes that improve the compatibility, the buffering, and the neighborhood responsiveness. And notably, we've reduced the number of units by 20% from 87 to 71. We've reduced the building height from 380 feet to 360. We've reduced the podium height by 16 feet from 81 to 65 to create a more pedestrian-friendly environment. We've increased the podium setback from 25 feet to 40 feet from the property line, 63 feet from the sidewalk to enhance the pedestrian experience that you see highlighted there. We purposely relocated the residential building 250 feet back from Flagler Drive to provide for additional green space and improve pedestrian safety. Improve visual impacts. We reduced the driveways from 2 to 1 to lessen the conflicts along the roadway, and also gained us about 400 square feet of green space. We also are preserving a mature ficus tree that gives a nice canopy shade over the sidewalk. The neighbors were concerned it might not be in a healthy manner, and we had it checked out by an arborist. The additional design results, additional podium setbacks. Again, we increased that podium from 25 to 40 feet. That's 13 more than the neighboring property, Alba, to create that green space and make sure that we were compatible with the neighborhood. This resulted in, this is a result of asking for side setback waivers that I'll go over later. It allowed us to shorten the podium height and allowed us to push this back. We have a considerable amount of additional parking because that was a concern of the neighborhood that other developers might have missed, and we want to make sure that we don't have any overflow parking into the neighborhood. Again, this allowed us to get another 400 square feet of green space along the Flagler right-of-way. The design results also in the podium. It reduced the podium height by 16 feet down to 65. That's just about 10 feet above Alba next door at 56 feet. Again, this was a result of a waiver that we're asking for that we'll hear later that allowed the setbacks to 15 feet. We also, again, had considerable amount of parking ratio to eliminate any overspill in the neighborhood, and this allowed us to enhance the landscaping out front. And so we'll see this in elevation. This is the reduction in the 16 feet to 65 to just 10 feet above Alba's. The increased podium setback from the street. Again, the parking and enhanced landscape specification, screening, and pedestrian scale along the street level. I'm going to go over the waivers that were requested, 5 waivers. The first one was for the minimum plan development. There's a quirk in the code. There's 2 sections. One section requires 10 acres. The other section requires 2 acres. We have 2.21 acres. This has been customarily given throughout the city for projects of this size and nature. The side setbacks, the current code the MF32 really focuses on the side and rear. And we didn't take that approach with this because of the context and the narrowness of the site. So regardless of height, MF32 is 25-foot setback. We didn't do that. We instead increased the setback to 40 feet. The original height was up at 85 feet. We'll also be able to reduce that. And again, this requested 15-foot setback for the podium allowed us to reduce that height and create a lower podium and making more efficient parking. Our third waiver is density for submerged lands, both upland and submerged. Once you commit to this, you cannot develop these submerged lands. We're asking for the 71 units, which is no additional density. So we're not asking for anything that others along this corridor are waiver to. And this is the 2 side setbacks. So we asked for 15-foot setbacks along the podium. The garage drive aisle, we still needed a little bit of room to make efficient parking. So this parking configuration allowed us to get 4 rows of parking. When we used the 20-foot setbacks, we ended up with 3, which then therefore squeezed the building and raised it up to that 85 feet. So when we met with staff, one of the suggestions was the new codes allows for the 15. So we took advantage of that, asked for the 15-foot buffer. Again, it allowed us to lower that podium and also set it back further away from Flagler Drive. The last waiver we're asking for is a separation of access points. We currently have 2 access points along Flagler Drive. We're asking for that to be centralized to reduce the impact to the street and working with crossing with pedestrians. So we have an existing one at the Flotilla Club to the north that we have to ask for, and Alba 1, their driveway separation. So these driveways just are with lot sizes that are almost impossible to meet. We feel our project complies with the amendment standards per Section 9432, items A through H, Section 9435C, and Section 94207C, as outlined in the submitted documents, the justification statement, and my presentation tonight. We disagree with some of the staff findings, and we're not subject to the North Flagler overlay standards that they reference in their report. So I've really paraphrased where those are, but I need to go through them. The height and setbacks per 9432A3, the heights do not sufficiently been reduced despite the waiver request. The tower's been reduced by 20 feet from 380 to 360. The tower's position is pushed back 250 feet from the property line, 263 feet from Flagler Drive. The podium's been lowered 16 feet and it increased its position away from Flagler Drive to reduce the impacts. Their second item was the massing and development pattern. Building massing is inconsistent with the surrounding area. Past and current high-rise patterns exist. The corridor is transitioning to slimmer, taller towers, reducing the bulk and shadow impacts, and increased setback to result in a compact, narrower footprint. Parking and podium height, excessive parking increased the podium scale. Yes, it did. The increased parking was a response to emphasized meetings with the neighborhood with the concerns to prevent local on-street parking, and the reduced setbacks result in the efficient parking that we've asked for in the waivers. Privacy and buffering, 9435C 3, 4, and 14. The podium height impacts adjacent properties. The increased front setback, the enhanced mature landscaping, the podium screen walls, the architectural screening, and the reduced podium height improve privacy and ensure compatibility. And lastly, the future development compatibility, section 94207, the design is not aligned with the future surrounding developments. Properties west of the site include many existing multifamily residential units that exceed the density that we're asking for. The single-family construction continues, so you've seen GL homes, you've seen these other high-rises that have been approved through here. They're doing GL's doing $3 million homes along the corridor, and you see other single-family developments continue forward. The project aligns with the emerging development pattern of the North Flagler Overlay District and the adopted district code. And I want to point out some excerpts from the code. So this is an excerpt from the new code that we're not subject to, but we're very close to meeting. So we're not subject to the 3 FAR. And if you look at their podium heights, they allow from 41 to 130 feet height to be set back 45 feet. So that's the new code. We're proposing a 65-foot podium with a 40-foot setback. In terms of the tower height, they allow up to 300 feet with a 215-foot setback from Flagler Drive. We're 360 feet is our request. We're 250 feet back. So proportionally, we're within the setbacks and height ratios. If you look at the podium, 2.88 feet of setback, 2.8 feet of height per the setback. So if you look at a 40-foot setback, proportionally, you'd be looking at a 115-foot tall building, and we're proposing 65. The tower, 1.3 feet back for every height for 1 foot of setback. A 250-foot setback would be about a 345-foot building. Again, proportionally, we're asking for a 360. In terms of the Flagler corridor and context, if you look at Marina Village, the Marina Village has a collection of 6 buildings ranging from 250 feet to 450 feet. There are 4 buildings in this collection just to our south that exceed the height that we're requesting. You also have Apogee, Placida Del Mar, and recently adopted Mandarin Oriental, which is 31 stories, 360 feet. That's the same height that we're asking for. And you have older buildings like the Palm Beach House, which is 30 stories, is what we're asking for. Lower floor to ceiling, and they're about 280 feet tall. So I feel that we're in context with what's going on down through the corridor. I wanted to show you, what most people talk about when you're walking down the street. So this is kind of a slideshow what's happening through this corridor. And I have images from Icon, which is in the Marina Village, as we proceed north to our development. So you've got a great pedestrian sidewalk, you've got shading, you've got trees, you've got bike parking, you've got art. As you see this transition up here, we zoom forward to Alba, the heavy landscaping and screening that's been provided for the podium, the streetscape that's being provided. We hope to continue that all the way up to Alba Reserve. This is a view from 47th Street in Flagler. So these are the 2 podiums. On the right is Alba 1. On the left is Alba Reserve. So you're seeing the streetscape being further improvements. This is an image of Alba that's just being finished with the proposed Alba Reserve beside us. Again, these are the podium shots, the active use, the drop-offs. Just 5 more slides. Environmental, existing site features, driveways. The driveway's been reconfigured to preserve the mature ficus trees. The current built environment has direct outfall to the intercoastal. So that'll be cured with this. The multifamily structures don't meet the finished floor standards. Our proposed drainage during construction utilizes fence and filter fabric to trap sediments. The site design, there's no direct outfall to the intercoastal, and our project is designed to collect and hold stormwater through a series of inlets, which lead to pretreatment exfiltration trenches to remove solids before a weir, and then out to the Flagler system to remove any contaminants. Dust, noise, and dirt is typically handled with water washdowns for all the equipment as we're proceeding forward on the project. Construction methods, there's no prefabricated hammered pile driving on the project. We're using auger piled drilled piers. We evaluate the surrounding properties pre-construction, and there's a seismic monitoring during construction, and there was zero damage as a proven method of construction for Alba. We utilized off-site leasing for parking for contractors and supplies. There's voluntary neighborhood outreach. I signed up myself to make sure I was getting notices. There's neighborhood notifications that have been sent out via mail, via website, and there's a direct access to the on-site manager to discuss and remedy any issues that might be going on. Construction timeframes, tonight, May 19th at the P&Z. We'd like to go to City Commission in June and July. Design completion would be August of 2027, permitting by the end of the year. Demolition of the existing structures and removal of the 16 short-term rentals would happen by the end of the year. Construction would commence the first quarter of 2028 and completion the first quarter of 2031. There's been considerable neighborhood outreach meetings, involvement, and enhancements have been explored. Before we even submitted this, we met with neighbors. We're making changes all the way through the last 2 years. We've been addressing comments. There was a list of 30 things, improvements that the neighborhood would like. We've went out and got bids from multiple vendors for security, for streetscape, for parks. We haven't decided on that and continue to work on that before we get prior to City Commission. Community benefits, we continue and enhance the North Flagler corridor with a slender tower design, enhanced landscaping, improved streetscapes, stormwater remediation, and undergrounding of utilities. We're providing concierge trash service, which means we'll be rolling out the trash directly to the street for pickup and removal back into the building from air-conditioned rooms. We reduced the neighborhood parking impacts by making sure that there's no spill. We have responsible construction management and minimize neighborhood disruptions. And prior to City Commission meeting, we'll be working on beautification of the neighborhood parks or improve streetscapes, or working with engineering to prioritize repaving of 47th, 48th, 51st Street, or help providing photometric studies and improvements that might come out of that. Alba Reserve's impact, they're discerning owners requesting highly amenitized property. They're very large condo suites, which is the current market demand. Suites range from 3,400 to 3,700. There's the 11 intercoastal townhomes. We've proactively increased our parking count for the no neighborhood overspill. It's a high luxury branded with elevated standards of living that exceed expectation. Sales will be from $8 million to $20 million, equating to over $3 million in impact fees. Construction to $280 million. Total sales of $750 million, and taxes that will be received annually of $15 million. This Northwood area is the next emerging luxury waterfront enclave. It's attracting architectural talents that result in design-forward results. All the efforts by the city for all the projects that you hear are all connected. I think the neighborhood would agree. The proximity to the urban core, the Marina District, Worth Avenue, Kravis Center, City Place, the Nora District, the museums, and the multimodal transportation, including airports and trains, all add cachet to the city and appeal to global buyers. We request that all the submitted documents, this presentation, and expert testimony made be put on the record. We respectfully ask for your support and a recommendation of approval this evening. We are in agreement with the conditions of approval submitted by staff, except for item 1, which is the limitation of the tower. Our team is here to answer any questions for you this evening, and I do have 88 individual letters of support that I'd like to submit for the record. Thank you.
Sure. All right, we have questions for you. Start with you, Peter.
Wait for John to get back to the speaker. John, can you walk us exactly how you're going to handle the garbage from the building to the street?
Sure. So there's been considerable efforts with this item, and we continue to work with staff. Just the other day, they sent us over another alternative that we need to explore. But what we're talking about here is, so we have, instead of trash sitting outside, that we have trash chutes within the building. These trash chutes end up in air-conditioned areas. So the day, Tuesdays and Thursdays, trash day, when they're coming down the street, this is a managed building. We'll be wheeling out the trash per an electric dolly and take it out to the street. It gets picked up by the trash man, sat back down, and wheel it back inside. That's exactly what happens next door to me from the Slade building.
How many containers do you estimate?
Oh, there could be, one or two, depending on the load during the season.
Because a suggestion that I would make is not to put them on the street, but create like a little container corral on the corner that's well landscaped and it keeps it from view. When your private garbage pickup comes in, you can just slide it for 5 or 10 feet and you can pick up the garbage rather than having it sit on the street.
Well, we don't plan it sitting on the street. We're waiting on the truck to come down here. There's been several meetings with the trash department. I have some emails and stuff from them. But they would rather not go onto the site. I mean, they're big trucks.
On the site, but have the containers concealed landscape so it's not visible.
Yes, sir. That was done in Alba, so it was a shorter run versus the longer run that you may see here.
Okay, and a question regarding the garage elevation, if you can bring that slide.
Sure.
Up.
The garage elevation?
Uh-huh. Yeah, you just passed.
Is that one? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
The one before.
I have to, let me X out of that.
That's it, that's good enough.
Perfect.
So I noticed, for example, the facade has certain projections in and out, and I think it's an ideal situation for you to consider doing planters on the inside with plant material hanging over to make it more natural. I appreciate the architect's efforts to, try and conceal such a large mass, but I think adding vegetation is going to help you considerably.
Okay, we definitely consider that. There are knee walls in there to make sure that there's no light spill from the parking garage and cars parked in there, so we will look into that.
Okay. How much light is projected beyond that screen on the side elevations?
Well, there isn't any light projected from them. We can't.
Interior lights.
Oh, the interior lights? I'm gonna have to probably get Keith up here to answer some of these. All right.
Sorry.
Good evening, Keith Spina, Spina O'Rourke. So you want to keep going or you want to ask?
No, go ahead.
What was the question? How much light is what? Mm-hmm. What was the question, Peter? Sorry.
Is there going to be any spill of light into the residential units?
Yeah, so it's interesting, we're wrapping up the construction of Alba next door, and one of the things we noticed, we design the garages so that they're sculptural and interesting, and some of the ways that we did Alba, we just realized as a result we have some car lights that are shining out of the building when they drive a certain way. So we're working on that on Alba by putting some more screening to stop that, but we have designed this building with higher walls to stop the cars from going through. There is some ambient light within a garage. We don't think that the foot candles are going to be projecting out of the building, but if you look at the building, you will see the garage glowing like you do, other garages. But we don't think that anything within this garage will be, keeping neighbors up at night.
The other consideration, which I know is not prevalent in this climate, is to do a one-level underground parking. With all the FEMA protections and everything else, is again another effort to reduce that whole height of the building. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, a little challenge with that, with FEMA, with full residential single use. It's you have to do what's called wet flood proofing, and you can't wet flood proof a garage that's below grade because the water has to flow naturally through it.
Well,
there is ways to do it with a mixed use building, but yeah.
But you have FEMA approved barriers too to protect it. One more, I think. Can you talk more about the extra 118 parking spaces and what the purpose of that is?
I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, so they're, luxury residential owners have domestic help. They have people that are coming over to work on the air conditioning in my unit. They're servicing, cleaning services. And what we found is that when you provide the code parking, that you get enough parking for the residences, but all this extra traffic that continues to come into the building. And we've listened to the neighborhood on a variety of projects, and we have gone through the design and the expense to add enough cars in this building to provide adequate parking for anybody and everybody that's going to be visiting the building. And you don't have to park down the street and then walk over to my unit to, provide your services. So, I mean, it's gone through a great expense to provide the
that this is
parking.
not a commercial operation, parking, where a tenant could lease some of the space.
Oh, no,
No?
yeah. This is what we continue to find around this market with this luxury product. We find people are, the Bristol, one of our first, most luxurious buildings in West Palm Beach. The second they finished the Bristol, we were involved. We designed a parking garage across the street on the church parking lot for 200 cars.
I know, I remember. No, it's funny, we just talked about the downtown master plan. The city wants to reduce parking by 25%, except for condos, it's going up 25%.
And downtown master plan is a different approach, right? It's
Just a final comment, I think that the project is still a slight overdevelopment on the site. Particularly concerned are the setbacks, the side setback, not so much the front and the rear, but it still feels like an overdevelopment. I think that the 300-foot height that was suggested by the city should be more than adequate. And those are my two comments.
Okay, thank you. Deborah?
Yeah, I want to go back to the rollout of the trash because, excuse me, where you showed the picture, I cannot understand or see why those containers cannot continue to be concealed until the trash trucks come for them. Why is it necessary for even the 2 containers to be rolled out? It appears, or it looked like it was enough space. I don't know if that's a problem, but I don't see why.
Well, we felt that keeping them within the building, within the air-conditioned rooms, was the best concealant out there. To put another space out front will definitely take away green space that we're trying to provide. We'll continue to work with the trash. If they didn't want to come on site, another option was to kind of hit it on a 45-degree angle, if you would. But that now has backing on the street, so we've thought the fastest and cleanest way to wheel those out. Right when the truck comes out, instead of a typical residence, when I leave the house, I put them out for the day. That was a concern in the neighborhood that we'd have dumpsters out there all day. This is a professionally managed building that, certainly doesn't want that.
The street is already 2-lane, very narrow. And then by the time the trucks come, traffic is backed up. I really don't see the rationale. I guess, as a developer, you would, but I just can't see that.
Understood.
It doesn't make sense. Let's see, my other question goes back to the waiver number 4 for the garage. I think that's, and I wanted a little bit more clarification on that.
Sure. Waiver 4. So waiver number 4. So waiver number 4 is in response to trying to get the podium down lower. So we've asked for 15-foot setbacks, which is the setback that's allowed in the new overlay district, 15 feet for the podium, and it can even be taller. What we asked for is we asked for a small, the drive aisles between parking when you're backing up car to car are typically 25 feet. We asked for a foot reduction in there. That allows us to get 4 rows of parking, which is much more efficient than the 3, and lower this podium height and get the 16 feet out of there. Does that make sense? Peter, I would like to respond to your last comment regarding the height. So when we looked at contextually, of the other buildings that are up here, Palm Beach House, for instance, it's 30 stories, only 280 feet. We felt that lowering this, just going through and taking, we've got 11 and 12-foot floor-to-ceiling heights. So we thought going in here and taking, 2 feet out of each floor would be detrimental to the project and not a, modern standard of living. So these lower units, that's what they are, 8 to 9 feet, floor to ceiling. So taking 2 feet out of each floor, we just didn't think it was appropriate. And also, if we didn't do that, then we would be shorting the tower and creating a more mass. So we thought a thinner, taller tower was less impactful, less shade.
I think what differentiates your project is you have a neighbor very close. When you look at all the other towers, they're pretty well freestanding. Lots of space in between the towers. The rhythm on the street is completely different than when you look at the Albas and you can see the twin towers. That's the concern that I have is the proximity, which also affects the height.
Yes, sir, I understand. And I would say to that, I think contextually, I think we're spot on with what happened in Marina Village and how those are all really, condensed into one area. So I appreciate your thoughts and comments.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Sam, any questions?
I'm going to talk about the unit count on the parking. How did you come to that number? What's the number per unit of parking spaces?
I believe it's 3.25.
3.25? I mean, was that just, like, how did you get to that number?
Well, the developer we'd like to have actually more, but what we're trying to do is find a balance of what the neighborhood can work with here. So this number allowed us to go from that podium to pull it back to that 40 feet. We'd actually require more. I think the new codes, I think it's 2.75, I believe, in the overlay district. But we like to. It's not a ratio that we were looking for. We'd like to have more parking, in fact. But that's what we could fit within the current podium and the height.
I guess with other comparable buildings, because we have other buildings that are comparable in today's world, I mean, what's the parking requirement, or in practical application, the parking requirement of buildings like the Bristol in terms of the cars being parked from the unit owners as well as workers coming in? Because I think it is smart to obviously not have workers parking in the neighborhood, but I guess I was hoping that number kind of came from a demand for actual parking versus a size restriction. Yeah, so the demand is, it's not pure science and pure math. What we've done is the units that started were, depending on unit size, number of bedrooms, a bunch of things. This type of product has a bunch of people that are going to live here 6 months a year. We know that 2 spaces per unit they have a parking problem really quickly. We found that by just watching what happens in the market. We find new buildings are going anywhere 4 up to 6 spaces per unit is what, like just if you could build anything you wanted, that's what the market would tell you. Super luxury buyers would want to have, they're going to have 3 or 4 cars. They're going to have 2 people that are coming to their house every day to help them with any variety of domestic affairs. And we tried to balance the number of spaces with what we think. The other thing, so the best part of the math, when you have this many units and this many people with say 70 units, 3.2 cars per unit, there's not really many weeks of the year other than a couple of holidays where everybody's in the building and everybody's filled. So when you have a couple hundred parking spaces, you end up getting to, we can use the other spaces. 100 of the spaces in here are valet parked. It could be more than that. So it's just a bunch of study in the market with experts, with the real estate companies and the developer. I mean, Kenny's an expert in developing this type of product. We all, we've done a bunch of these buildings in West Palm Beach. And it's a lot of art, but we think anything north of 3, we think getting over 4 starts to cause a real problem for the size of the garage. And so we got to 3.2. And at some point, working with staff, when staff said, hey, the new setbacks are suggested at 15 foot, if you took your garage, and we had 20-foot setbacks, and if you went to the 15, we can get the perfect formula, which is 2 double-loaded rows of parking. That's the perfect garage dimension. And it netted out by us getting rid of a level, dropping the podium down, 10 or 11 feet. That was the final math. And so I can't say it was much more scientific than that, but there was a lot of intel that went into this. Every building we're designing, every building we talk about,
the parking and the ratio, the size of the units. You know, these are big units, 3,000 to 3,700 square feet. I mean, those are big units. And so we think we came up with a really good compromise, taking into all that into consideration. So.
Did the neighborhood express that there's issues with parking from the condo buildings that are existing along the waterfront now?
Yeah, I mean, it starts, I'm sure you'll hear about the construction process in these neighborhoods. It's painful, right? And so it starts at construction, but when people move in, there's people that are parking their cars all over the neighborhood. Domestic help, if you have 2 spaces per unit, you very quickly, I've got my car, my wife has her car, and someone's coming over to, you know, help us do yoga in the house, right? And they're gonna have a car, and if there's no spaces, they're gonna park out on the street and walk in. You know, domestic help, if you have somebody come into your house a couple of days a week, helping with the cleaning or something, they're gonna park out on the street, and we know the neighbors are already sensitive to the parking on the streets, and we're gonna solve that problem as much as we can by paying millions of dollars to build extra spaces to hold those cars. It's you know, I think of it as a really progressive development strategy that, you know, Kenny Baboon is committing to. It's costing them millions of dollars, and we think it's an incredible commitment to take into account what the neighbors want. It helps the project too, but I think it's there's not a lot of developments that are going way above and beyond in their parking.
Okay. And then regarding the height, so you mentioned that it was originally designed at 380 feet, and then it was reduced. I guess besides, you know, to justify a tower that height, I mean, are there, you know, you mentioned it being designed slimmer. I mean, are there some, I guess, accommodations to be able to afford for a taller building?
So, yeah, this is a great image, right? This is updated. This is what exists today. And it's a combination of buildings that have previously been approved in the city of West Palm Beach, and they have the right to build them. The tallest building in the whole strip is the most luxurious product at Rybovich. It's going to be 450 feet tall. We're asking for 360 feet. So what I like to say as an architect, forget the code for a second, forget everything for a second, does a building when it gets over 300 foot or over 250 foot tall, and it goes to 300 to 350 to 360 to 450, as you're walking by on Flagler Drive, are you going to be able to tell the difference? Absolutely not. John did a little slideshow of walking in front of Marina Icon Village. It's a beautiful pedestrian experience. If you stare at it from an architectural perspective, there's a sidewalk, some landscaping on both sides. It's grown for 4 or 5 years. It's beautiful and shaded. Next to it is a road, 24-foot wide road, service road. Next to that is a 5 or 6 story open parking garage. And behind that is I don't know how tall Icon Marina Village are. They're 250 feet tall. You can see them if you turn your head and look up, but it's what I think by listening to the neighbors and walking around that area when we're analyzing this, it's what we think of as everybody would agree. It's one of the prettiest parts of the north end of West Palm Beach neighborhood. And it's in front of a parking garage, in front of a driveway, in front of a 250-foot tall building, in front of an open parking garage. And so, you know, the height of this building, we think we think height, so it's just, you know, as an architect and working with, you know, world-renowned architect Carlos Ott, we think a taller, more slender building is spectacular. It's 100 feet, 90 feet shorter than the tallest building that the city has already approved here. The other building that was just approved, and, you know, happened to be the architect of record on Mandarin Oriental, it's 360 feet tall, and the city approved it because it's going to be a magnificent building. And this and Mandarin were the 2 projects that were in the review process before the city started to come with a new zoning designation. And so, you know, we just approved a beautiful 360-foot tall building a couple doors down. We think this one's equally as beautiful. We think at some point we're hoping that there'll be a branded residence announcement about it, exceptional quality. We think it's an incredible, you know, product.
Thank you. Sam,
Okay.
any other questions?
Nope. That's it. Thank you.
So go back to the trash. So how is the trash handled at the Alba right now? Not the reserve, the Alba.
Oh, my trash expert.
John?
The trash is in the back of the building. It's wheeled out to It's wheeled out to a spot forward in the property in that setback. Then it's taken from there when the trash man comes, and it's wheeled out. It doesn't sit on the street either. So although a shorter run, you know.
But you said it doesn't sit on the street to wait to be collected.
No, same thing. That it's a managed situation. It's if I'm gonna try to find a slide here for you, that I can show this to you.
But I guess the bigger question is the driveway wide enough for the garbage truck to be off the street during collection?
No.
Okay.
No, on Alba, it's if you look at the screen I've got up here for you right now. So in Alba, the trash is behind the building. The dumpster is wheeled out to this location till the trash man cometh, and then it's wheeled out to the street to be picked up and put back in place to then be taken out back further. So it's going to reduce the amount of green space in there. If that's the board's pleasure, you know, to ask for that location, I think we're fine with that. We just thought it was better to not have the trash, have more green space, and be able to just wheel it out on demand. I thought it was a much better solution.
I had a question for you about the acreage. Originally, it was 2.72. Then the survey came back, it was 2.21. Out of the 2.21, what percentage of that, if any, is submerged?
About 0.21 acres is submerged. It's about 2 units that we're asking for on there. The original, we had another half acre that we thought was in submerged lands. When they went to close on the property, Kenny's bought this property. It was through the title work, figured out that we were down a half acre.
Okay. And down another 0.21 for submerged?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, comparatively, the 5,600 that Keith is talking about, we're on terms of upland area. They're a 3 acre site, but a half acre in submerged lands. We're within a 1/4 acre of the one that was recently approved at 5,400, the Mandarin Orlando.
Okay. Out of the parking, how much of it is going to be, well, will the employees of the Alba Reserve be parking on site in one of those 360 plus parking spaces?
Yes, sir, they're required to.
So every employee will be parking on site?
That's correct.
Not on the street?
That's correct.
Okay. You brought up about the construction. Construction parking is a nightmare for everybody in this city. What is your construction plan for where all of the construction workers are going to be parking during the construction phase? Will they be in the neighborhoods and inconveniencing the residents?
I'm going to bring up Senior Vice President Matthew Marks. I know that he took care of it during this first one, and I'll let him kind of explore on that.
Hello, Matthew Marks with the developer. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. I've been in construction for a very long time, and parking is always very difficult. On the first phase of Alba, we rented a vacant parcel for construction parking and some material storage. We 100% plan to do the same thing for Alba Reserve. It's probably 2 years away. We don't exactly sure if it's the same parcel, but if we can't get that parcel or another one close by, we'll get a lot off-site and bus people in and out.
And let's see, last question. I think I'm good. Thanks.
Patrick. Patrick, any questions?
Yeah, one question for Keith. Did he? Oh. If you can put up that elevation, slide 19, the front right there. Back to the materiality of the screen wall on the podium. What is that gold material?
It's a metallic, perforated material, kind of, the shape is more sculptural with the curves, and as it goes up the building, it tapers back.
Yeah, I think, to Peter's point, this concept of, I don't see a tremendous issue with the height of the tower, I actually think the building itself is, I'm seeing both of them, both towers together really as one building, as one development, if you will. And I like that it actually responds, the height of the tower, and that it sort of changes in height from the south end to the north end. I think that's responsive. This image here is kind of what's more concerning to me in terms of height, which is that podium, which appears, that's what people will perceive from the street the most. And to Peter's point about underground parking, I mean, I don't like to tell people what they should do, but it's certainly been done. I mean, our firm did an entire mixed-use development on the island, and we put all of our parking requirement underground. It was close to 150 spots in 2 levels. So it can be done, but, and it's also my understanding that, I think someone else asked this already, but there was a conversation with the neighborhood, and they asked for additional parking to be considered, or it was to get cars off the street, or that was coming mostly from you guys?
No, so the neighbors didn't ask us to build more parking. We, as a result of both the marketing of a building like this, not only will buyers want more parking than what the code tells you that you should park it, but we know that there is a parking dilemma when people come to the building, visitors, guests, your family's visiting, and we think that the market says to give people more than 2 parking spaces, or you're going to have people parking all over the neighborhood. I don't want to go visit my friends at Alba Reserve and I have to park, 2 blocks away and walk, and it's raining and my wife's mad at me, and we think the building of this caliber should have more parking than what the code suggests, and that's what the market suggests. Yeah. And by the way, on the parking under the building, we do buildings. I know the building you're talking about. I'm pretty sure if you understand the code as required by FEMA, you cannot provide underground parking in a fully residential building. It has to be mixed use, or you cannot do what's called dry flood proofing, which means in your Testa building, you put some flood barriers when a hurricane comes so the garage doesn't flood.
Well, the point of ingress to the garage was above the floodplain.
Yeah, and it is not required. You cannot take a solely residential building and stick the parking underground.
Mixed use, of course, but
we're studying it on the Ambassador project we're doing in Palm Beach, and it's not allowed by code.
Yeah, I think there have been other applications before this board where that would have been a viable option, but in this case, perhaps not. But I still think this elevation is somewhat problematic, and it would be nice to see some more cohesiveness in that datum between the 2 structures and bringing that the face that faces the street more in line with each other, if it's possible. But in terms of the overall height, I don't have any issue with it.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Gene, any questions?
Sure, I guess this question is for John.
Trash, right?
AKA. So you mentioned that the city, or you implied that the city was maybe enforcing code for the new overlay code requirements.
I'm sorry, I missed that. The city's.
You mentioned that some of the objections from the city were maybe like an enforcement of the new code overlay requirements. Of the objections that the city noted, which ones, in your opinion, are not a quote-unquote enforcement of the new overlay district?
Well, I think if you look at their comments, they broke them down per these sections, and majority of them refer to higher FAR. We're not subject to the caps of the FAR that are in the current code. What I'm trying to show you as part of that is that we're not subject to those FAR caps. That the massing, the planned developments, and the flexibilities that we're asking for allows us to ask for it. Certainly they have to be granted, but what I'm trying to show you here is when they talk about a podium being 41 to 130 feet tall and within a 45-foot setback, I mean, we're, in terms of a ratio, we're pretty close to what the new code is. That's why we disagree. That's why we disagree with them. You know, I think that when they say that we're not contextual, I think that this overlay certainly sets up the context for buildings being 300 feet tall and even being closer to Flagler Drive. And we've been sensitive to that.
And I guess in my opinion, I do see the two towers as maybe like a continuation, kind of like one city and two city plaza. I don't have an issue with the podium height, but I think there's almost a lack of continuity. I don't know if it's the color or the bulge, but it does seem to stand out more so than the overall height of the podium and then the height of the building itself.
Keith, you have anything there?
Yes, so you know, when we started working on this project again several years ago, we got the, you know, honor to be able to work with Carlos Ott, you know, world renowned. You've seen, I mean, some of the buildings that he's done. We in West Palm Beach now, if you are architect of record, you get to work with a ton of incredible architects. So it's become, I mean, you know, pretty soon they're going to talk about the best collection of world renowned architects, and it's in West Palm Beach. So we love that. Carlos had the vision for this building, you know, that really interesting tapering of the top of the building. You know, I don't think I would have come up with that. And then we talked a lot about, you know, it's Alba and Alba Reserve, you know. He thought that his vision for this building should be complementary to the neighborhood, to the community, to the building, you know, 50 feet away from it. I wasn't going to probably argue with him too much. His resume is a little shinier than mine. I think one day John's going to call me a starchitect, just not yet. But you know, it's very subjective, right? The part that's interesting here is we don't really have a whole lot of architectural review as part of the criteria to, you know, get a building approved
Correct.
in West Palm Beach. I think we should, but that's not what the criteria is, and the FAR is not part of the criteria either. So it's kind of interesting. Look, you know, if somebody said, "Hey, I love the idea. We actually have a really interesting profile on the face of the garage that would allow us to put plants in there," you know. That the new building, the office building downtown behind the Christian Science Church, the plants are not only there on the side of the garage, they're growing and they're beautiful. So, you know, we could do things like that, but today's probably not the night to continue to debate them.
Yeah, I mean, I think in isolation, the building, I mean, maybe it's beautiful, but
Yeah.
you don't think there's a clash there with the two buildings?
We don't.
Okay.
You know, we were very involved in the design. We studied every single unit in Alba. What is the view? We moved the building around. The building's, you know, 250 feet away from our property, our west property line. It's, you know, it kind of, in some of these perspectives, I said, when we did them, I was like, I wonder if that's right. It seems like the building's so much further back to the east that, you know, it almost makes it appear that Alba's taller than it is, you know. So, but, you know, the thing that John showed earlier with this context of walking through the neighborhood, I think that what's going to happen in a couple of years when these buildings are done and occupied and the landscaping's grown in, like Marina Icon, you're going to still feel the incredible pedestrian neighborhood. And then as you look up and out, you'll catch a glimpse of some tall buildings. But I think the benefits to the community, I hope, you know, we're working with the city engineering right now, trying to figure out how we can help repave a bunch of streets in that neighborhood. Without this development, I don't know if those streets will ever get repaved. So, you know, we think optimistically that this is an incredible, you know, addition to the city of West Palm Beach.
Jason, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Hi. Thank you both so much for the presentation. That was extremely informative, and I thought you actually made it really short. So that was surprisingly, you said it was 20 minutes. I felt like you came under there, and now we're taking up a lot of time. So I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I am going to touch on trash. We'll start there, I think. So you said a concierge trash service. Can you define what that is for us, please?
Well, it's going to be a managed building, so there's people working there all day long. The front desk, maintenance.
It's your
people.
term, though, correct?
I'm sorry.
Concierge, it's your term.
Yes.
There's
yes,
not a
I'm
concierge.
sorry.
We have not heard of this concierge service before.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's our
So
term.
I'm
It's our
trying
term.
to sort of
It's our-
ascertain if Waste Pro is going to be managing that, or if that's
No,
City of
I'm
West
sorry.
Palm Beach.
No, it's an on-site managed.
Understood. So you're going to be using dumpsters,
Yes, sir.
and how many yards are going to be the dumpsters?
There's I don't know the yardage
Okay.
that Keith has in there, but there's several.
There's a
and-
4-yard that I'm looking at in the picture right there, I think.
And,
so.
and that's a building a shot from across my office, and so they have electric tote that actually takes it out there, not like you'd have it a hanger to bring a airplane out. It's electric tote that totes it out there.
Okay. I think that everyone's made great points about traffic and parking and garbage pickup obviously being part of the issue. And I mean, I can say, as someone who deals with this specific issue quite often, you're definitely caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of like adding more collection days. You have 71 units and you're going to have very limited garbage access and distance to travel. It's going to be a problem unless you bring those closer to the street. I mean, that's the only way that I can see a solution without obstructing traffic significantly or adding more traffic collection schedules. And I mean, you said Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that was what the day was, but
Yeah.
it's actually on, they allow on demand as well. So, we would have liked to have provided for the trash pickup from a private provider. But because the city offers it, we have to use the city to utilize it. And to your point, if there was another day that we need to pick up, it is a phone call and on demand.
And waste management, I don't think is allowed to service in that area, if I'm not mistaken. But if they do, I know that they can go onto the property themselves and they'll do collection.
Yes.
So that is something that's worth exploring if they can service that area. I do know that there are services that would do that for you, and what they would do is they would do the entire process. The truck comes, they do it, but you're facing the same problem, which is that your dumpster enclosure is not close enough to the street, so you're going to be obstructing traffic for a significant period of time. So
Yes, sir.
that's still also going to be an issue at the end of the day. Not sure how you're going to be able to resolve that. Good luck. I have other questions. So the next is regarding parking specifically. And I just have to say, 71, 268, it's 268 spaces, correct?
Correct.
Divided by 71 is actually 3.77 and not 3.2, so we are closer to 4 than we are to 3. I think if we can get closer to 3, we might be able to reduce 35 spaces there.
Yeah, I'm going to let Keith come up here because we did explore it.
I like talking to you more, please.
Well, I'm going to bring him up because when we did explore, the reduction of those parking places, we thought we could push the podium back even further.
Okay.
So that was what we were striving
John,
for.
when you calculated the number of spaces per unit, you also said staff will be parked on there. Could that be the difference in the parking spaces?
Well,
Because you
certainly.
said 3.27 per unit, but you still need extra spaces for the staff too?
Yes, sir.
Maybe that would be the
when I did it, that's what the number is, at 3.7. I'm sorry, it was a
It's okay.
mistake. But I'm going to bring him up because when we looked at reducing that and then maybe pushing the podium back even further, then we can't get the ramping to work. The ramping becomes too excessive, and so this ramp steepness got us in trouble. So they've really been exploring this for quite a while, and that's how we got to
I
our
would imagine
current solution.
so. And before you do bring Keith up, and that was actually not meant to offend, the other question that I had was regarding all of the buildings that you had in that one image where it showed the height of each individual one. Can you bring that up for me?
I'm sorry, which one was that?
The water view with,
Oh, sure,
yes,
absolutely.
exactly,
Yes,
25.
yes, sir.
Thank you. So there's no mention of FAR on any of these. And I think that with the guidance that we're receiving, FAR is one of the primary, if not the primary consideration when these buildings are being developed. For us, I mean, in terms of the height requirements, that's what it seems like. But it seems like we're far off with the FAR calculations with consideration to the other buildings. Am I mistaken there?
We're at, I believe our FAR is 4.1 on the property. Go ahead.
So there's a mistake here. in developing all the buildings that you see that have been previously approved, FAR was not a variable. It's dwelling units per acre. So until the new code, and my friends at the city right behind me may add some correction to that, but FAR was, until just the newest code that is for the north end, FAR was not in the rules at all. You didn't have to talk about it. You said, I get 32.27 units per acre, and that's the governing variable. That's it.
But it is now.
Today, our project does not fall under that regulation. Ours was submitted, and we had been designing this building for a year before that regulation changed. And when you're in the process like that, if we were in the process, we don't, there were two projects, Alba Reserve and 5400 do not comply with, have to comply with the new regulations. So we don't have an FAR limitation, and we don't have the 250-foot height plus incentives. That doesn't apply to our projects.
When you had mentioned waiver 1 in your presentation, was that the fork in the code that you were specifically referencing?
No, that's for a plan development. So a plan development has a minimum acreage requirement. There's a glitch in the code when it comes to that's kind of customarily been given. And let me pull this slide up here. So waiver number 1 was for the plan development. So to be a plan development in the city, there's two code requirements, either be 10 acres or 2 acres. So we had to ask for a waiver to make sure we were covered, certainly under the 10, but we certainly exceed the 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Jason? And Peter
At
says
this point,
he
I'm
has one.
finished. I don't think I could probably talk about garbage collection all day.
I
No.
think I'm good on the garbage issue. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to point something out. You mentioned proximity to Brightline. Somebody is buying a $5 million condo and has 3 cars, ain't gonna use Brightline. Question for staff.
Okay, but we're going to have staff do a presentation. Why don't we wait till them? Yeah, they haven't said their presentation.
Staff, nothing.
Okay.
Could you get back to us, Jermaine or Ana Maria, and clarify whether FEMA permits underground parking?
Okay, well, let's wait till they give a presentation. You need to answer question of staff. We're still dealing with questions of the applicant. Stay seated, please. Please. Any other questions of the applicant? If not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll hear from staff. And you can start right away with your question to staff. And even before you give a presentation, you're going to have a question. But state your name for the record, please. I know, poor man gets pounced on.
All right, good day, everyone. Jermaine Swaby, Planning and Zoning Senior Planner for the record. So I'll be presenting Planning Board case number 2035. I'd like to enter into the record 15 letters of objections, as well as a letter of objection from 16 residents and a community feedback survey. And all these were placed on your desks. So the applicant provided much of the details, therefore I'll be presenting additional information as required. So currently the site is zoned multifamily high-density residential MF32, which is shown in burgundy red. And the applicant is proposing to rezone to residential plan development shown in green. Also, I'd like to add that for waiver number 1, requesting a reduction in the minimum required area complies with section 94207 C2B, where the benefits derived from a residential plan development can be derived in a lesser area. So onto one of the main topics of concern. So the applicant was previously tasked with meeting with Public Works to address concerns with regards to the public. One of the major items mentioned was that they are experiencing issues with the number of garbage container pickups along Flagler, which creates an undesirable condition. So after reviewing different feasible options proposed by the applicant, staff suggested that the route shown in red be the route that is chosen, which the truck would enter, would turn right for the pickup area, and the area is shown with the red box, and then they will reverse and exit. And so this is the main option that staff would like. And also, as a last resort, the Alba one, the way they're doing their pickup would be preferred as well versus what they're proposing currently. For some additional context and history of the lot, during the plan review process, the applicant reassessed the survey. And the result was a reduction in the submerged land and overall reduction of the subject property from 2.72 acres to 2.21 acres. As a result of the decreased lot size, the applicant had to reduce the number of units that could be requested, which saw a decrease in the number of units from 87 units to 71 units, which they're requesting. And in response to the decrease in the number of units, the applicants increased the size of the units, which resulted in 3 units per floor instead of 4 units in order to keep the height at 360 feet. This is 60 feet over staff's recommended height of 300 feet, for the record. In accordance with section 94-207C4, residential buildings shall be located at least 20 feet from the outermost perimeter property line for an RPD zoning district or public right-of-way. So staff initially recommended the 15-feet setback, which is relative to the current NOFOD regulation or North Flagler Overlay District regulations, in order to assist with reducing the proposed building from the original height, as well as the 360 feet building height that they're currently proposing. This is concurrent with the request by staff to reduce certain other or mitigate other issues. So also a waiver is requested from the requirements found in section 9477A3, which requires a 180-foot setback for the proposed 360-foot height. So given staff's recommended height, staff does not concur with this requested waiver. So to go into further details as to why staff objects to waiver 3. And just to start off, when the applicant mentioned that the FAR is not used as a regulation with regards to this site, they are correct. But I'll go into further details as to why we're using the FAR. So the chart shows the FAR of the Alba Reserve in relation to the approved development within proximity. And in comparison to 5400 Flagler, which was approved at 360 feet, the land is 0.8 acres smaller, but has a larger FAR of 4.14. So this comparison is provided to only highlight that there is a greater massing of the building relative to the lot size, right? And even when compared to a larger lot requesting the same height, so this highlights that, is this a desirable characteristic? And I'll go further into that question. So staff would like to mention that with the applicant's previous size unit and the previous unit orientation that they provided with their design, there would have been a significant reduction of 4 levels, which is shown in red. This reduction would significantly reduce the building height by 48 feet to a height of 312 feet, while retaining their desired floor-to-ceiling height that they have. And this leads us to the first section of the Plan Development Regulation, section 94-207A, which, as the applicant mentioned, allows for the relaxation of height, setbacks, and lot area requirements. However, I've highlighted the intent of the PD. So this also encourages innovative land planning and development techniques for a more desirable and attractive development. And as you can see, I underlined the desirable and attractive. And with this provision of the intent, the incentives are provided. So they're contingent on each other. Additionally, the maximum number of stalls that will be permitted with the current NOFOD regulations is 196, which is 72 spaces less than the 268 stalls proposed, which eliminated 1 level of parking. Staff finds that the NOFOD regulations for the maximum number of parking would assist in mitigating the excessive parking stalls. Staff is therefore highlighting that the current NOFOD regulations would serve best in providing sufficient parking stalls with eliminating some of the issues that they're facing in regards to the lack of parking. And staff therefore finds that the request does not comply with the rezoning standards 9432A for City Development Code and Development Pattern. And staff also finds that the request does not comply with site qualitative standards 9435C for harmonious and efficient organization as well. The screening and buffering enhancement of residential privacy and consideration of future development is not met. And also, staff finds that it does not comply with the plan development provisions and required setback. And staff is therefore recommending denial of planning board case number 2035. And that resumes my presentation.
Any questions?
Concludes.
Jason first. Oh, okay. We'll get you. That's it. All right. Jason, any questions of staff?
No questions, thank you.
Gene?
No questions.
Patrick? Will? Oh, we're doing so well. It's the trash, right?
No, it's not. So can you explain the NOFOD and if the code sections that you're referencing, are they new from NOFOD that they're not complying with, or are they, if you back up one slide, you have like, it doesn't comply with these three?
Yes.
Are those three part of NOFOD?
No, it's not.
They're not. They're pre-existing to the changes that were made with the...
Correct.
Okay. And the applicant did submit their application before the NOFOD approval, so some of the comments in the staff report regarding NOFOD are really the intent of what you would like to see there versus those issues applying to this particular application.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned that the applicant stated that the acreage was actually 2.1, but they said they actually have 0.21 submerged. Your report says it's actually 0.24. So they're at 1.97 acres. Does that put them below where they need to be?
So with the submerged land calculation, it's accumulation of both the upland and submerged land that would contribute to the size of the lot.
Okay, so the submerged land can count towards
correct.
the light. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Can't read my own writing.
It's okay. Take
so
your time.
you had showed a slide with the FAR, which doesn't apply here, but your point was that their FAR is 4.14 compared to another project.
So even though we're not using the FAR as a means for the approval of project, it is still indicative of the size of the building in relation to the lot size. And also, as I highlighted, I asked the question, this is a characteristic of the site? And the approval of the PD with relation to certain aspects like lot area and all that is connected to whether the development is a desirable development. So that is something that I'm putting to you guys where you have that decision as to what you perceive this as.
Okay. So the 2.21 acres applies under the old standard, it's MF32, right? So it's 32 times 2.21 is the maximum number of units, theoretically, if you're not using FAR, right?
So yeah, so they utilize FAR for the density. They have the density calculation, which is the upland, which they have the full 32.27 acres. And then they have technically a portion of the submerged lands, but they requested to utilize the full density for the submerged lands as well. So Staff didn't object to it. It was two units more.
Okay.
Which, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Peter.
Jermaine confirmed that a construction, traffic, and
Sorry, I can't really hear you.
construction, traffic, and parking management is a requirement by the city, no matter where you build and what you build. It's a standard requirement.
Yes.
Okay. Back to my original request, I was wondering if you or somebody of your staff can get back to the board on, just out of interest, whether underground parking is feasible in West Palm Beach.
Okay.
Okay?
Sorry.
I can give you the unofficial answer.
Yes, go ahead.
Google AI say that KID is correct. If you are 100% a residential building on a flood area, you're not allowed to do parking underground. So
Okay.
What's the answer?
100% of a residential project. I think
Google it.
Mr. Mayfield example is a mixed-use project. So
Yeah, and I was referring also to
Okay, he gets one
the
brownie.
Rybovich project that had.
All right, any other questions?
That's it.
Okay. Sam, any questions of staff?
So again, unofficial answer, AI response, just go ahead.
Right, with that level of professionalism, we thank you, Anna Marie. All right.
So yes, a few questions. I'm going to just ask clarification. So the solution that you outlined for the trash pickup, does that change anything in terms of their actual site design, or is that just a protocol on where the truck's going to go?
So the one that was suggested where they come on site, turn right, reverse, and exit, so with speaking with Public Works, they'll have to make sure that they accommodate the curb cuts for it. And of course, it may take out some of the landscaping on site.
So,
But it may involve them either changing the curb cuts or pushing the building back. They'll have to do the design work to figure out what that would entail to accommodate.
okay, so that actually would change. That's not just a protocol. That's like a design item.
Suggestion.
Okay.
Yes.
First thing, so you mentioned that there's a minimum parking requirement for these buildings, right? Is there a maximum parking requirement for a building?
Yeah, that's the thing. There is not a maximum, but there is a minimum. So with them providing more, it was within, they could provide more. But the issue is whether it is that the more that is provided would create an issue in terms of what staff believes the massing of the building, especially the podium.
Okay, so there's no actual maximum. It's just a matter of whether it feels like it's too much. Okay. And then, we mentioned the Flagler overlay and this not being part of the Flagler overlay. Is there a reason other than the Flagler overlay that staff feels that it should be 300 feet? Like, is there a specific reason?
So it's if you're looking at some of the things that staff mentioned, yes, we believe that the 300 feet does lend itself to the characteristic of what would be with the neighboring property, as well as, which is the Alba one, as well as what would be contextually, in terms of the massing of the building in relation to lot size, would be a much more harmonious design with that. So that's a part of the suggestion as to why. Does that answer? I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Just to add what Jermaine was saying, the 300 feet that was proposed for the Flagler overlay was related to the street section. So the further the building was pushed away from the residential neighborhood, the height. So we consider like the 300 was a kind of a comfortable relationship when you have, on the west side of Flagler, you have single-family houses that are 2 stories. So allowing additional height was starting to overwhelm the neighborhood. So it was kind of a compromise of you push the building further away from the neighborhood and you can go up to 300.
Okay, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there are buildings that are over that have been approved. So, I tend to agree that once a building gets over a certain height, the additional height doesn't necessarily impact anything from the street. The FAR might be more of an impact because then you have just a more dense, building on a site, but the height itself doesn't necessarily feel like it's much of an impact. I mean, is it an FAR issue or a height issue?
You are correct. I mean, the proposed regulations for the Flagler overlay include an FAR that is not existing right now. So that's what's happened with the plan developments. There's not an FAR. So it always becomes an issue of how tall the building is because the regulation requires additional setback as you go higher. That's the only measurement that the plan development has. The overlay proposed the FAR as a more substantial way to control the massing of the buildings that we think is what the real impact is. So in this case, we're suggesting the height restriction because there is no FAR that they restricts them at all.
Is there but there's no height restriction either.
It is in the terms that they are requesting a waiver of the setback in order to allow them to go higher. They are not providing the setback that the code requires to allow to go higher. The board could say like, yes, 360 is okay, but the mass of the building needs to be reduced because the FAR is too much for the site.
So I guess if there was one thing that would be more impactful, would it be reducing the FAR or reducing the height?
I think the massing of the building is a lot of the impact.
Mm-hmm. So the FAR?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
All right. All right. Any other questions of staff? Yes. Oh, sweet Jesus, really? All right.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something. So John had said in his testimony that the city was not allowed to come onto the property for trash, but your plan shows them coming onto the property.
Yes.
Is that something that has to be approved by sanitation?
That was something that was verified by Public Works. So it could be accommodated as long as they provide clearances for the truck.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. All right, now we're going to hear from the public. Please understand everyone has 3 minutes in which to speak. There'll be a timer. Please respect that. We have a lot of people here tonight, and what happens is when people go over, some people can't wait and they have to leave. So for respect of others and respect for our rules, we ask you to please honor the 3 minutes. When the buzzer goes off, you can finish your sentence, but please no more than that. We have 2 podiums. I'm going to have lines on each one. I'll call your names. And let's start at this podium. We'll have Linda Gross and Richard Goldberg. That's on this podium. Whichever you want. If you want to start there, that's fine.
Thank you.
On this podium, then, joining her would be Gregory Bevovich, and on this podium, Angela Ogburn. All right?
Okay.
Excuse me, the names I called, if you could please come forward. If these people are not here, then I'll call other names before we get started. So just to be clear, your name, ma'am?
Linda Gross.
Linda, and your name, ma'am?
Angela Ogburn.
Angela, okay. So does that mean we do not have Richard Goldberg here anymore? Or how about Gregory Bolovich? Okay. Then on this one here, if we could please have Kent Wilmering. If you come forward, sir. And on this podium, if we could please have Steve Annabelle. At this podium. Thank you, sir. Okay, ma'am, you could go first. Please state your name for the record.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Good evening. My name is Linda Proust-Gross. I live at 429 47th Street. I left Miami-Dade and Broward because of density. I've spent 10 years advocating for thoughtful planning and neighborhood preservation in Northwood Harbor. Northwood Harbor is not just another development corridor. It is a historic waterfront neighborhood with character, scale, charm, trees, light, and open views that residents and visitors value deeply. We understand cities evolve. We are not trying to freeze this neighborhood in time, but growth should feel intentional and harmonious, not oversized and disconnected from its surroundings. The proposed reserve appears to dramatically increase height and density beyond what many residents believe the community overlay was designed to encourage. When buildings become too large for their setting, neighborhoods lose something difficult to recover: human scale, visual openness, and a sense of place. The waterfront belongs emotionally to the entire community. It should not become a canyon of increasingly massive towers competing for maximum height and density. This board has an opportunity to help shape a future that balances progress with preservation, development that future generations will appreciate because it respected both nature and neighborhood context in harmony. That is what residents are asking for tonight. In addition to the building itself, the other side of the coin is all of the issues with construction that are potential problems, such as parking, traffic, speeding, garbage, and human waste on our streets. Noise, loss of privacy, the right to quiet enjoyment, and increased health risks caused by construction dust and silica, which are known carcinogenic substances that must be measured and contained for the health and safety of all. We request that you implement a testing system on all new construction with mandatory inspections, and that when studies are done and a bird-proof glass is required. 47th Street from Flagler to Spruce has been hard hit by all of the excess weight and increased traffic. It cannot accommodate two-sided parking and commercial vehicles coming and going on the narrow street. I suggest that 47th Street become a one-way street, closing entry at Spruce. Vehicles may exit 47th, entering on Flagler. Please consider this for traffic calming and protecting our beautiful historic neighborhood. My house is 100 years old, and I hope to live out the rest of my days there, surrounded by the beauty of Northwood Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ma'am, you can go next.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Angela Ogburn, a resident of Northwood Harbor Historic District and Service President of the Neighborhood Association. Thank you for meeting with us and the opportunity to speak on behalf of members of our community regarding this project. As you will hear from many residents tonight, we are passionate about our community we call home and deeply invest in protecting its character and quality of life. Our board has participated in numerous meetings with hope that meaningful changes would be made to the project scale, massing, and operational impacts on our community. Although the site's acreage was reduced based on updated survey, the overall development intensity remains largely unchanged. The proposed tower height of approximately 360 feet is excessive for this location. For comparison, Alba to the south is approximately 245 feet tall. A maximum height of 300 or below would be more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and waterfront setting. We are also deeply concerned about the continued walling off of the waterfront. The historic character of our neighborhood is a major reason this area continues to attract new development. As growth continues, we must ensure that new development respects and preserves the qualities that make our community unique rather than eroding character. Equally important are the environmental and quality of life impacts of project of this scale. Comprehensive wind studies should be required due to the proximity of existing homes and adjacent tower. I know this because I experienced it firsthand on 52nd Street beside an existing tower. Traffic and infrastructure impacts also cannot be ignored. While some units may initially serve as seasonal residents, many future residents will ultimately take them to full-time homes. We must account for long-term strain that additional density will place on our roads, public service, and overall quality of life. Finally, this proposal is being presented as world-class luxury development, yet it proposes curbside rollout and recycling service. This approach would degrade the pedestrian experience along Flagler Drive and create additional traffic and service disruption. A project described as world-class should demonstrate responsibility not only to the building itself, but also to the community it is joining, and I emphasize joining. That standard should include meaningful compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood and responsiveness to community concerns. We do not believe the current proposal fully reflects that responsibility. We respect that the board not to advance this project until the issues of height, scale, compatibility, and operational impacts on the surrounding historic neighborhood are properly addressed. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead, please.
My name is Kent Wilmering. I live about 400 feet from here at 4918 North Flagler Drive. I have been living with the construction of the Alba next door to me with parking, construction work, a 40-foot dirt mound. I'm intimate about what happens as this goes along. I think the biggest issue, as you guys have looked at, is scale. That's the reserve. That's Alba. That's 2.33 FAR, Alba. That's 4.1. That's 240 feet. That's 360 feet. And they're only 35 feet apart. How far is 35 feet from window to window? I think this is the biggest issue here. I think that Alba, it's comfortably sitting in the neighborhood. This is too much, way too much, and not enough contribution back to the neighborhood. Apogee, which is next door to my house, and the 5,400 projects, they all managed, worked to make the neighborhood accept what they presented as a partner in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. On this podium, if we could please have Michael George. Michael George, are you here? Please come forward. And Sinclair George, if you could follow behind him. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, commissioners and everyone in attendance. My name is Steve Annabelle. I live on North Flagler Drive, within 150 feet of this proposed project. And I just want to bring to your attention, because I'm believing you're probably not aware of the situation with the stormwater there. I've been there in this home for 30 years now, and 28 years there's been 2 floods, substantial. The stormwater system there is 105 years old. My house is 105 years old. It's not accommodating the runoff, and when it does overflow the system, it goes over the land surface into the intercoastal. The building, Alba, that already has been built and the proposed one are elevated quite a bit. I believe 6 to 8 feet ground floor height over the street. And what's been happening is when it rains, since the new Alba building's been put up, the water's flowing from the front of the building to Flagler Drive, and this has been a problem between 47th and 49th for a few years, and it has worsened with the construction of Alba. And I just request that somehow you look into it more, or have studies done on this stormwater issue. It's going to be a problem. I mean, I was in my front yard, the water was above my knees back in March. That's happened twice since the new building's been constructed, and only twice 28 years prior. You know, I just ask your ability to look into this a little better and before you approve anything. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. At this podium, if you could, ma'am, are you here? No, I want to put 2 more there. Please stay at this one, please. Yeah, at this podium, if we could please have Nicole Ambler. Are you present? And then Tatina Michaloko. You'll be behind that one too. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Michael George and I live on 48th Street. I'd like to focus on how this proposal aligns, or rather does not align, with the city's zoning and land development code. Under section 94-35C, the city requires that the development be organized in a way that's harmonious with the character of the adjoining property. I'm sure you'll hear more about how unharmonious this project is. It will cast a shadow over the adjoining Flotilla Club, and it dwarfs the adjacent property even built by the same developer. Second, under section 94-207A1, the intent of the Planned Development District is to encourage innovative land planning that results in more desirable and attractive development. The ocean view may be desirable and attractive for the fortunate 71 families that will live there for half the year, as the applicant admitted, but it's not more desirable and attractive to the 400 homes in Northwood Harbor. Just consider the following question. Who is this development most attractive to? It's obvious that it's attractive to those that are staring at the ocean, while the majority of us have to stare at that spaceship of a parking garage. Lastly, the application of the RPD is obviously being misused here. An RPD is meant to be used for lots greater than 10 acres with intentional, cohesive, long-term planning with mixed uses. It's not intended to be used as a mechanism to dodge the core intent of the code. At the risk of trying to be a mind reader, it's clear what the developer's doing. They're trying to squeeze every square foot out of this project by using the lax RPD designation, and then on top of that, asking for extensive waivers. This is evidenced by the extremely high height in combination with the minuscule setbacks, and the dwelling unit density of 32 units per acre is pushed to the absolute maximum allowed by the future land use element. If the code allowed for 50 units per acre, I'm sure they'd ask for that. They framed the reduction of 87 units down to 71 as some sort of concession, but clearly that was a response to the fact that they lost half an acre, so by code they were required to remove those 16 units. And they don't even try to add mixed uses per section 94-207A1C. They ignore any floor area or FAR guidance in the code, and they conveniently use the overlay when their setbacks kind of align, but they intentionally ignore the FAR in the overlay. And they have tighter access points as well. Approving projects like this, each with multiple site-specific deviations, can gradually lead to a pattern of disparate, non-cohesive development, where each developer grasps for the absolute maximum rather than being part of a unified plan. That's how neighborhoods lose their identity and structure over time. In contrast, creating the type of community that many of us would like to see, one with walkable amenities, thoughtful density, and cohesive, modest design, requires intentional, coordinated planning, not a series of one-off approvals.
Thank you.
We respectfully ask you to deny the motion.
Ma'am, if you could go forward, please. Ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nikki Embler. I live at 46 in Flagler, right across from Alba 1 site. I want to share with you my own personal experience about what's happening during construction of these massive proposed projects after having lived through it with Alba. First, I want to mention the extensive damage to our infrastructure, mainly road and water lines, due to the increased traffic of overweighted construction vehicles. Appearance of numerous spectacular-sized potholes have appeared, reoccurring sinkholes on several streets, water main breaks on my own street, 46th Street, and 47th Street as well. I've lived in the neighborhood over 25 years, and I have never seen destruction, degradation of our property like this since until after Alba has started construction. Another situation we have endured is that the construction crew illegally parked on our residential streets. This causes a few issues. Crew cars prevent street sweepers from being effective, so the storm drains fill up with debris, and then the streets flood. No parking for the property owners to actually park at their property, blocked driveways, damage to personal landscaping, trash thrown into our yards daily or set on the curb like it's a gift for us to pick up as property owners. My favorite are the water bottles full of urine. Those are a real treat. It's not just garbage pollution we have to deal with, it's air, light, noise as well. Some days you can see thick billowing clouds of construction particulates in the air coming from the site and settling over our community, coating everything, and we're breathing this air in every single day. Imagine heavy machinery sawing, hammering, drilling, beeping, fire drills going off incessantly. Literally, please just figure it out. Every single day for almost 3 years. It's a lot. It's like torture. Two more very important things concerning the safety of this community with respect to traffic during construction. Early on in Alba construction, my neighbor's dog and she was nearly hit, but her dog was hit by a construction crew member who fled the scene. My dog and I were also almost run down just recently within the last few weeks in the very same crosswalk just south of the Alba construction between Alba and 45th Street. Finally, I would like to address the lack of a wind study, which has also been mentioned by others because it's very important. The winds are greatly increased due to the size of the condos along Flagler. Placido Mar never had one done because it wasn't required decades ago when it was built, and they have experienced cars actually flipping over in their parking lots due to the winds that come whip around their buildings. So we want you to know that there is an actual real concern for our community safety here. We're not trying to be belligerent against developers, but we have a concern, especially at 48th Street, where they will be directly in the path of excessive winds created by that sliver of a space that's going to be between two huge towers if you agree to allow them to have the height and the setbacks that they're requesting. We are not opposed to development, as I said. We are open to growth, just opposed to projects that are asking for allowances that go against the character of our historic community, pose potential risks to our neighbors. We just want to be heard.
Thank you so much.
Hi there. Thank you all for your time. My name is Sinclair George. I live on the aforementioned 48th Street, and I'd like to focus on two things that I believe point to this project being oversized for the lot and community. They're going to be redundant. You've heard about them because they're glaring issues. FAR and setback waiver. On FAR, this project may not fall under the overlay, but the overlay is put into place for a good reason, right? Because it feels like it's right-sizing these buildings to be harmonious with the communities, which this project is supposed to do to get the RPD zoning, be harmonious with the community. And then on the setback, this 15-foot setback on the south side of the property that runs along the original ALBA is going to lead to like a 30-foot gap. And the resulting proximity of the two buildings raises, as Nikki mentioned, serious questions about wind channeling. In a hurricane-prone coastal area, this doesn't feel like a trivial concern. I would ask that the impacts of placing these two buildings in such a close proximity be formally measured before any waiver is granted on these setbacks. My concerns do extend beyond this project. Developers routinely look to precedent, pointing to what previous builders were granted to justify their own requests for waivers on height, FAR, setbacks, etc. We've heard that multiple times tonight, justifications for this project. I don't want future builders coming in to point back and say, but Alba Reserve got to set their 360-foot building 15 feet away from the lot line. Over time, the code and the vision it was designed to uphold erodes project by project. I also understand that development happens and that it can bring real benefits to the city and its communities. As a new homeowner in the neighborhood who chose the neighborhood for its charm, its historic character, and to be honest, its modesty, I'd offer that some things are best when they practice some restraint. I'd love to see new development in the neighborhood honor that spirit, and I think that's what the code requirements are designed to ensure. With that, I respectfully ask the board consider what it means when a project requires waivers that point to the fact that a development is simply not practicing the level of restraint appropriate for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. At this podium, I would like please Colleen Hope. Are you here, Colleen Hope? And also Lindsay Wynn. Lindsay Wynn there, okay. Please come forward, ma'am.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is, excuse me, my name is Tatiana. I've lived in Northwood Harbor for over 29 years, and I own a property across the street from this development. I want to focus on compatibility and neighborhood character, which is, I understand, are some of the key considerations in your review. In section 94.35C of the zoning code, the city requires that development be organized in a way that is harmonious with the character of adjoining property. To the north of this proposed Alba Reserve is the historical Flotilla Club that has been there for many, many years and is only 2 stories. In this case, the proposed project is clearly not harmonious with the adjacent property nor surrounding historic Northwood neighborhood. The scale and massing of the overall intensity relative to the lot size are significantly different from the existing pattern of development. On their website, the architects talk about the original Alba project as being luxurious, in no offense to the adjacent Flotilla Club, but I would not call that luxurious. The proposed project is not even harmonious to the adjacent building developed by the same developer. The proposed structure is substantially larger, and the parking garage, as one of our neighbors puts it, looks like a spaceship has landed in our neighborhood. Northwood Harbor today is defined by lower scale residential buildings, historical homes, modest spacing between structures, and an open coastal character along Flagler Drive. Many years ago, Flagler Drive from 36 to 56 was designated as a linear parkway. We have an active walking park the city has designated. There is a rhythm, consistency, and history to the neighborhood that gives it this identity. The proposed project represents a fundamental shift in the scale and intensity. This is not an incremental increase in density or height. This is a high-rise structure with a podium mass that is significantly larger than surrounding developments. The planning principles typically call for appropriate transitions, meaning a taller, more intense development should step down as it approaches lower scale residential areas. This transition is not present here. Instead, the project introduces a large vertical mass, reduced setbacks to 15 feet, causing unknown wind possibilities, and a building that form is not consistent with the established pattern of the neighborhood. Specifically, the artistic approach taken on the parking garage. This creates a visual incompatibility and not just a difference in preference. Again, we are not opposed to development, but this proposal does not appear to be scaled or designed in a way that fits the character of Northwood Harbor. Thank you for your consideration.
At this podium, if I could please have Renia Hunter and Paul Rampel. Is Renia Hunter here? Okay, and Paul Rampel? Okay.
Different case.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll put that aside. So at this podium, let's see, make sure I have this right. David Thomas?
Next case.
Okay, I have my list messed up here for one moment. Let me check. That's okay. Will you double check this for me? Why don't you go ahead while we're sorting it out?
Did you say wait?
No, please go forward.
Okay. My name is Colin Hope. I live on 49th and Spruce Avenue, which is 1 block from Flagler. I'll just summarize some of the points that have been raised tonight. This proposal involves scale, which I think one of our neighbors already demonstrated, from our houses here to the Flotilla Club, to Alba Reserve, which is way up here. There is an intensity involved that's not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Secondly, it involves multiple significant deviations from zoning standards. Thirdly, there's been an unfortunate history with this developer about the treatment of our roads and our surrounding area. And I can personally witness, when I first came down here 2 years ago, the amount of concrete trucks that were lined up back to back to back to back on 49th Street was an eyesore that went on for a long period of time. And I think the project is planned for another 3 years of development coming up. So that needs to be taken into consideration. The use of the RPD designation that does not appear consistent with its intended purpose. We're not opposed to the development of this site, but we believe the development should occur in a way that, 1, aligns with the established zoning regulations, 2, respects and enhances neighborhood character, 3, does not rely on extensive waivers to achieve feasibility, 4, no one's mentioned the properly assessment of wind risks introduced by this structure. Number 5, we want enforcement of proper behavior during the construction process. And 6, a guarantee that improvements to the community that's most impacted, Northwood Harbor. For these reasons, we respectfully request that the board deny the rezoning as proposed and require a redesign that is consistent with the underlying zoning standards and the development pattern of Northwood Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Rihanna Hunter?
It's Renee.
Renee, I'm so sorry.
I
Is
get
that you?
a lot, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, please proceed.
So I am here, actually, I'm not a Northwood Harbor resident, I'm a Northwood resident, and I'm here just to express our concerns about the increased traffic resulting from projects like this. As the developers mentioned, these types of residences tend to come with an entire army of service people, and so living in Northwood, we have an incredible amount of increased traffic from these developments, people coming to and from downtown, and we're right in between that. It's become unwalkable. The pollution and smog and noise is becoming unlivable, and quite frankly, we're taxed very highly where we live. And I don't see how I'm getting that type of value living in a place where I can't even sit outside and have any peace at all. It's just constant, motors and honking and madness, quite frankly. The chaos is picking up through our area, and we have no traffic calming on top of that. So I am just here to request you guys consider the army of people that come along with each of these developments, and also the fact that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, right? It's one at a time, and each time it increases until you have a huge mass of traffic going through a very quaint residential area, which is so sad. I'm heartbroken. I'm very much considering moving at this point because it's just becoming unlivable. So that's all. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our comments. My name is Lindsay Wynn. I live on the Intercoastal on 53rd Street. I love Northwood Harbor. It is a community of boaters, fishermen. I belong to the Sailing Club, Flotilla Club, and for decades, residences and buildings have been using warm, low lighting, lower on the Kelvin scale. And studies show that it's best for the environment and nocturnal ecosystems. Longstanding residents have cared about the waterway and sea life, and they love living by the ocean. Placido Mar and Palm Beach House are examples of high-rises using low lighting on the east side of their buildings. The city has built a huge manatee center. I quote directly from the website. Manatee Lagoon is dedicated to educating the public about manatees and Lake Worth Lagoon, the inspiring communities to preserve and protect Florida's environment and wildlife for future generations. One concern among others is what lighting and environmental measures have been put in place for these high rises on Lake Worth Lagoon to protect the ecosystem and light pollution. And one last comment is closing down Flagler Drive has been an absolute nightmare for the residences and especially for the children in the area. They can't even ride their bikes or go out and play on the streets. It's just become so dangerous. And I just ask the city to please limit the amount of time that Flagler Drive is shut down. There's so much construction in the area. Thank you so much.
I have several cards to read from people who say they do not wish to speak but ask me to read their comments in the record. Is there anyone who wishes to speak who I've not called yet? Please come forward, sir. Have you completed a card?
I didn't have one out there.
Okay, that's fine. When you're done, if you don't mind, for the record, complete a card. But go ahead and speak now, sir.
Robert Nelson, live at 5600 North Flagler Drive. I would just like to urge the board to take the recommendations of the staff and deny this project as proposed. Many parts of it are difficult for the neighborhood to adapt to. The height is extremely troublesome because maybe you don't see it from the sidewalk, but if you live in a condo next to it, you're going to see it. The traffic on Flagler is with the garbage trucks using it for pickup just delays the traffic and causes further congestion. And I just request that the board consider and all of these items from the audience and from the neighborhoods before they approve this project.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this? And sir, don't forget to complete a card. I have 3 cards. I want to read it in the record. One is from Lucy George. She says, the request the board does not advance this project as presented. From Avor Sabatic, the density for such a small lot takes away from the natural surroundings. The last Alba building created a lot of neighborhood damage, documented. Looking for a smaller community feel with trees and open spaces. And then lastly, from Claudia Barto, as a native and 35-year-plus resident, a year West Palm Beach resident, I moved to Northwood Harbor for the charm and diversity. I don't approve of the project for everything that I've stated in my emails. Okay, I think that concludes the public comment. Then, to the applicant, if there's any, not a long time, but if you have any of these specific concerns you want the opportunity to address before we.
Yes, sir. Just, it will be quick, though. The volume that we're talking about is, for the units, is a market-driven volume. The 3,400 to 5,100 square feet is the same square footage that our contemporaries are building through here. So that's the same square footage that you saw at the 5,600 building. We're asking for that same square footage and that same height. I think by reducing the height, what that would mean is that our tower would obviously be lowered, but that's going to push out on the volume and make it more impactful. So we thought a taller, thinner design is less impactful. We're not subject to the FAR. We're asking for 32 units to the acre. That's the standard. That's the same that our neighbors would be asking for directly to the north and south and all through the corridor. A wind study will be conducted with the building permits that's required. Constructability, what I will say is that we had to work with, not that we had to work, we will work with the neighbors on the traffic routes. At one time, they were asking for them all to go down 45th Street, but actually it was asked that they be, fanned out throughout the streets. So we'll continue to work with them and as we go for building permits to make sure that that is, to their likings. Mr. Fish did ask a question of Anna Maria in terms of what was her preference, and I just go back to the 5,600 hearing where was her concern with height or was it concern of active use? And the answer was it was active use, and we solved that on our property, and now we're back to height on this one and volume. So I think that we're within the ranges of setbacks that the new code is adopted. In fact, I think we're less impactful. We would ask for your recommendation to move forward. We'll continue to work with staff and the trash department. Just to correct what I was saying, I said the staff preferred not to go on the property, not that they won't go on property, they prefer not to. So if that's ultimately the solution that's wanted by the neighbors and the developer and the city, we're happy to do that, and we'll continue to explore that as we move forward to City Commission. That's all I have for you.
Any other questions of the applicant before we take it back to the board? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to ask everyone in turn what their thoughts are, and let me begin with you.
Yeah, you're right. I think in terms of the density allowable, you're correct, but it's the issue more about the whole massing of the building and the separation between the ALBA and the ALPA, and the two ALPAs is of great concern. I think that I'm supporting the staff denial of the application with the 7 conditions, but to be more positive and constructive, I like to add another 5. One deals with the garbage, call it garbage corral, that was presented by staff, which is not in their recommendations, that the applicant look at ways of concealing the garbage containers so that they don't sit on the street during garbage day. It's a private service. They can just as easily get out of the truck and go and pick up the containers, dump them and put them back in the corral. The other item that I wanted to include was the FAR is too high. I think that you should consider a reduction in the FAR. Similarly with the parking, 3.77 is, I never heard of that ratio, to be honest with you. I think you should, discuss with staff what would be a more reasonable provision for parking. And the suggestion that I made in my comments early on about providing some type of landscaping in the front of the garage so that it becomes more natural and it's not big metal element. I believe that's it.
Sam, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think certainly the issue that came up about trash seems to have a viable solution, so that's a positive. I think there's a lot of positive things about the project. I personally, and I think other members and people have voiced that, the height is less of an issue, but it seems it's more of the density and the FAR is kind of the issue. And I think that there doesn't seem to be enough accommodations to compensate for the extra parking and the high density. I'm actually surprised because most of the time when projects of this scale, certainly ones as well thought out as this, they do come to consensus with the city and the neighborhood on a lot of these issues. So I think there could be better communication between both the neighborhood and developer as well as city to kind of come to compromises and see which items are the things of most importance to each party and see how we can achieve the best possible project. I think certainly for the neighborhood, it's important to feel that that they are being good neighbors and that there is an element of place that it is coming into a neighborhood that's been existing. All the things mentioned, the infrastructure damage or issues, the traffic plans, the construction plans. I kept hearing things over and over again, and it does sound like a horrible experience. Those are all things that are requirements of any project going through the city, especially one of this scale. And if those things aren't being adhered to, I would encourage you to hold, the city to the fire, to be accountable, to make sure that there isn't infrastructure being damaged or there isn't traffic patterns being damaged or there's people getting hit by cars. I mean, that's specifically, what the city staff is there to do is enforce those sorts of things. And if they're not enforcing it, private developers, they do, I think, genuinely, in many cases, they do want to be good neighbors and they do want to do the best for everybody. They don't want issues. They don't want to have upset neighbors. They don't want damage to property and infrastructure. It does happen in construction. They might not be aware of it, and they also, are doing their best as well on large projects. So this is something that the city should be, kind of held accountable for. In terms of a compatibility, I'm not sure that a neighborhood that is a 100-year-old neighborhood is going to necessarily be compatible with, high rises, no matter what they look like. And I think that the land use and certainly the city's guidance on what should be on the waterfront is higher condos, higher buildings. So I think that that's something to just be understood, that there is going to be development. The buildings are going to be tall because of the price of the land and what there is there. So, I think there just can be better communication between all the parties to look at what's achievable and what the goals are for both the neighborhood, the developer, and also the city to get the best possible result, which is certainly possible. We've seen it on other projects. So I think that can definitely be done here.
Thank you, Sam. Will.
Yeah, I also agree with Sam and Peter. I think, and I agree with staff, I think the challenge is, for me, the mass of the project right next door to the existing Alba makes it feel much bigger than it is, and masses up on that property. I do have concerns about the height of the podium, concerns about the number of parking. I understand what the goal is with the parking, especially with the type of residents that are coming. These are people that are, storing their cars in motor garages around the city. So I do understand the reasoning behind having the parking, but it does create some issues with the project, with the size of the parking. I concur with what you had to say, Sam, because we've been living through it in different areas of the city with construction and the city's lack of enforcement in the issues that are being caused by the workers who are ignoring the busing and the shuttling that a lot of the developers do implement. And they're taking up parking spaces and they're getting changed in the street and really not making it a great living environment for all of us here in the city. That being said, for this particular project, I do agree with staff, and I would vote for denial.
Patrick?
Well, I suppose I'm a little bit torn on this application. I think it's clearly too massive, the perception of that. But, you know, we're being asked to make a subjective assessment of other components of the code that this application was not held to from a legal perspective. You know, in the absence of FAR, height must be abided. You know, personally, I don't have an issue with the overall height of the structure. I think the perception of the massing relative to the podium is certainly a concern. Just out of curiosity, to confirm the question that came up earlier regarding the parking below grade, I happened to pull up the National Flood Insurance Program.
You didn't check AI?
I didn't. I can confirm the AI analysis. It is indeed prohibited, but I would be curious in looking up the actual FEMA flood map for this parcel. 90% of the parcel occurs in Zone X, which would not, it wouldn't be bound by those provisions. And feasibly, there's a version of the footprint for this project that would allow them to put some of the parking below grade and could go a long way to reducing the perception of mass. And unless there's something I'm missing, you can do underground parking in Zone X regardless of use. The extent of the footprint of the building would have to be limited to that flood boundary. But I don't know, just clarifying for the room, for everyone's edification. But the fact remains, it seems it is too massive.
Gene?
I think the standard at question is section 9435C, harmonious and efficient organization. And like Patrick mentioned, it is, you know, a little subjective, but we have to take into consideration the adjoining property. And I know the applicant mentioned, you know, we don't make decisions based on, you know, architectural specifications, but I mean, that's all part of it, because there is a sort of flow and balance that needs to be achieved with the adjoining property. That said, you know, a lot of people raise concerns about things that would generally occur regardless of, you know, the developer has an ability to build to a certain height by right, so there will be construction. So, I mean, there's no doubt that, you know, something will most likely be constructed there. So just to keep in mind that, you know, it's something that we all have to put up with. You know, this board, and I don't know if the city commission can just deny something based on inconvenience, and it is a huge inconvenience, but hopefully, as Sam mentioned, you know, we can hold those accountable if things aren't being enforced correctly in terms of, you know, busing or just harmonious construction management. But yeah, the overall height, I think when you're looking at 50 feet is probably from me to that first row of chairs there, and 300 to 350 feet, I don't think from somebody on the ground level is going to make a huge difference, but I think in relation to the property adjacent to it, I think there's an issue there. And maybe the podium should be reduced somewhat, and maybe can look into some sort of underground parking. So I think in this instance, I would agree with the city's findings as it relates to the section that I mentioned.
And Jason, you'll be voting on this because Deborah had a graduation to attend.
That's exciting. Thank you. So I have a couple of comments to make. The very first one is that the community clearly has a very strong opinion on the project, and there seems to be a lot of consistency from each of the individuals that we've heard today. the best guidance that I could possibly offer is that it's better to work with the community and be a part of it and welcome them so that they can welcome you. You know, there is no them, it's us, and we're all together on this project. I do think that the building is beautiful and it would be a fantastic addition to our cityscape, but there are a couple of things that we've clearly addressed today, I think, that need to probably be dialed in a little bit more before we move forward. I will also make a comment regarding the packet that we receive and how that's sort of filtered through and presented to us for our review, because it does seem like there should have been maybe a stronger emphasis on the consideration and timeline regarding FAR and the acreage consideration, because what we're reviewing, what I'm seeing here, it does seem to be a little more subjective than objective. Obviously, if you're recommending a denial or an approval, that's going to happen naturally, but it does seem like this was leaning for us to consider more heavily the FAR, which I think that that's been made clear today. But I also do think that that's unfair to the applicant, considering that when they submitted, that wasn't part of their submittal process. So I do think that that's very relevant when we consider this moving forward. Additionally, one other comment that I would have is that the wind studies seem to be something contingent upon the building permit process and not our approval. And I feel like I'm sure someone much more qualified than myself in the world of development or architecture probably has some rationale regarding that. But to have the wind study not be conducted prior to putting a building 35 feet away from another building that's 360 feet tall might seem like something we should revisit. That aside, I think there's a lot of really compelling sides to this, and it's an exciting project no matter what. The needs of the community definitely need to be addressed. There does seem to be a pretty significant impact on everyone's daily life, and especially like if someone's getting into car accidents potentially, or getting injured. The water bottles, that's rough to say the least, and much more serious guardrails need to be implemented during the process of construction, because I think that something is happening on this property no matter what, and moving forward with the development of this area, those considerations need to be made throughout the development process. So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Before we call it for a vote, I just want to say to the applicant, if you listen to the neighborhood, if you listen to staff, and we listen to you as well, there's a workable compromise, I think, that can emerge from all this, and I would urge you all to pursue it. There's a lot of merit to the project. There's a lot of merit to the neighborhood's concerns, and we thank the staff for their good work as well. So I'm going to ask for a motion. I have a comment too, Okay, go ahead.
The funny observation that it's a question of timing. Imagine how good of a project this would have been if both lots were developed at the same time as one project. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Okay, so looking for a motion.
Going to move denial based on the findings that the rezoning petition does not comply with the required standards of sections 94-32A, 94-35C, and 94-207E of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations. In addition, the staff recommends 7 items as part of the denial, plus the 5 items that I added at the end. If you want me to list them?
No, I'm going to suggest, since we're denying it, there's no need to give all the reasons,
Okay.
right?
Fine.
Sam, if it's simple denial, we don't need to articulate other things we might have liked before we denied it.
Do you have the motion?
Here's the form you may want to follow for. It's going to be a simple denial.
Yeah. Or 2035?
If someone else has it handy.
Oh, second page, okay.
Here we go.
No, it's 2025.
He's got it right here for you.
Thank you, Sam. The bottom?
Yeah, you
Okay.
don't have to then give any further reasons.
Okay.
And understand, particularly the standards that have not been met if you move to deny.
So what I said earlier, the standards that haven't been met. Yeah, added to that? Okay. Okay. I move that the planning board recommend to the city commission
Some help for you.
case number 2035, request by John Smith of Smith Nichols on behalf of the 4700 North Flagler LLC for a rezoning to change the zoning designation of the subject property from multifamily high density MF32 to residential plan development RPD with waivers from the city zoning and land development regulations to allow for the construction of a 71-unit multifamily residential development. The motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing, along with the application submitted to the staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes finding of the fact that the application does not comply with the required standards of sections 94-32A, 94-35C, and 94-207C of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations. The standards have not been met, including the following, which is the number 1, comprehensive plan, number 2, change conditions, number 3, city development code, number 4, existing and proposed land use, 5, public facilities, 6, natural environment, 7, property values, 8, development. The site design qualitative development standards also have not been met for harmonious and efficient organization. Anything else?
Okay, that's a motion. Have we a second?
Can we agree in part and disagree in part?
I'm so sorry.
So I think I disagree with some of the standards that were raised, and then.
Okay, well, right now,
Okay.
for rules of order, we have a motion. Do we have a second? And then we could amend it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, is there any second? If not, the motion fails for lack of a second. And then we're looking for a new motion. Gene, do you want to make a new motion?
Yeah, that's the issue. Yeah.
Give him a shot here.
You have it on yours. Okay. All right. I move that the planning board recommend to the city commission denial of planning board case number 2035, a request by John Schmidt of Schmidt and Nichols on behalf of 4700 North Flagler LLC for rezoning to change the zoning designation of the subject property from multifamily high density residential MF32 to residential plan development RPD with waivers from the city's zoning and land development regulations to allow for the construction of 71-unit multifamily residential development. This motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes finding of fact that the application does not comply with all the required standards in sections 94-35C of the City of West Palm Beach, so I'm amending that. City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations. The standards have not been met, include the following, and I will cite section 94-35C, subsection 1, harmonious and efficient organization. All elements of a plan shall be organized harmoniously and efficiently in relation to the topography, the size and type of the property affected, the character of adjoining property, and the type and size of buildings. The site will be developed in a manner that will not impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of surrounding properties, et cetera, et cetera, or uses permitted in this chapter. That's my motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's his motion. Is there a second to this motion? Anyone
We're going to
seconding
be here
the
all
motion?
night.
Or it's going to fail for lack of second? Someone else is going to take
I'll
a stab
second.
at it. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I want to understand what the difference is.
Want to explain?
I only cited one of the sections as opposed to all of the sections. And then subsection 1, harmonious. Subsection 1 having to do with harmonious organization. So I disagreed with some of the other sections that were referenced.
I think you were just reading all of them.
For why it was denying the sections on which it was relying.
Yeah. You were just reading through the entirety of the list.
That's what I was told to read.
You're looking at me.
Angela Van, Assistant Development Service Director. I'm quite trying to understand your motion. So you're saying that denial based on 9435C1, but what about 9432A and 94207C?
I made my motion. That's my motion.
Okay, so he's right.
But
Robert's rules you've been heard. We still have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further
But
discussion?
you can't make a motion.
Sam, does it have to be denied based on all three, or?
It's our motion. The recommendation is that there be, did you see on the screen there?
Yeah.
That's their recommendation. But you have a pending motion and there's a second. Sam, any thoughts before, as we
The
discuss the
application
motion?
is based on the standards in all of those sections. So you will have to make a determination as to all of those sections. The standards are listed in your backup material, all of them, and you can look at them and identify which of those have not been met.
Right, so if I omit 2 of the other sections, that means that I'm only raising section 94-35C.
But the application is based on all of those, and you would be giving an incomplete vote.
So he needs to, so if you are thinking that they do not comply with only section 9435C, does that mean that you think they comply with section 9432A and 207? And, okay, so then you have to just say it.
What do I have to say? I just didn't mention that those were ones that those were reasons for denying the application. I just stated the only one that I agreed that it should be denied for.
Isn't one sufficient to deny the motion?
Just
There's
if
nothing
you
wrong
can
with my
just
motion.
ask about for the records that they comply with the standards 9432A, all of them,
I see
and
what-
the one that they do not comply is the one 9435C1.
Why don't I just amend my motion and
You
take away
can't,
the harmonious?
you can't, because there's already another motion and a second of that motion. So that's the motion that's before us. And if Gene wants to amend his motion, if the second agrees with that amendment, then we'll go forward. If not, we're going to vote on the pending motion.
Yeah, but we're having a discussion too.
I know that, but we can't amend your motions off the table.
Okay.
Required setbacks. Dash 207C. And then in.
Sam, you've heard the discussion. You know what we're trying to do. What's your recommendation to Gene as to how the motion should be
That is
phrased?
correct. You would need to articulate in your motion those sections that you find they meet the standards and those sections that you find are not met as a part of the motion, and a vote would need to be taken.
I mean, because these motions are just guidelines, like we have to kind of dissect them a little.
Gene, what you say makes sense to me, so I'm confused as well. So if you have a path out of here, we'll take it. So he's going to amend his, but who seconded his motion originally? I think it was Patrick. So Patrick,
Okay, so I'll
amend the motion, and then you'll have to
We're all
accept it.
volunteers, just so we're all clear.
All right. So Gene's going to amend his motion, and the second then will accept it or reject the amendment.
I've got to start from the top, huh? Okay. Here we go. I move that the planning board deny the variance to the city's zoning and land development regulations. Hold on. Okay, we're going to go right here, right? All right. I move that the planning board deny the variances to the city's zoning and land development regulations as listed in the staff report dated May 12, 2026, associated with planning board case number 2025. I'm sorry, 2035.
Yeah.
Why did,
Let's deny 2025 too. We get rid of two of them at the same time.
what happened to? I had it. Sure, thank you.
We need more paperwork.
Okay. I move that the planning board recommend to the city commission denial of planning board case number 2035, a request by John Schmidt of Schmidt & Nichols on behalf of 4700 North Flagler LLC for rezoning to change the zoning designation of the subject property from multifamily high-density MF32 to residential plan development RPD with waivers from the city's zoning and land development regulations to allow for the construction of 71-unit multifamily residential development. This motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes findings of fact that the applicant does not comply with all the required standards of section 95-35C, 94-35C, subsection 1, harmonious and efficient organization, and 94-207C, subsection 4.
What about 94-35?
And subsection 5, parking and loading space. Actually, well, parking and loading space. I think that's sufficient. We find that the applicant is in compliance with the remaining sections proposed in the application.
Okay, Patrick,
Do you have those
accept the
numbers?
What's that?
Which ones?
Of the sections you find they comply with?
Sure. 94-32A.
All sections.
All sections. And not in compliance with 94-35C subsection 1. And not in compliance with 94-207C subsection 4 and 5.
That include
Are we
all
good?
of those sections? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's all.
That a wrap?
I second.
Patrick, do you accept the amendment to the motion?
I accept the amendment to the motion.
We have a motion, we have a second as amended. Is there any further discussion on the pending motion? Angela, you're pushing it here. Go ahead.
One last thing, Angela Van, Assistant Development Service Director. You guys have to do a finding for the acreage. That's a separate, and I know it's not in the motion, so I do apologize. But you have to make a recommendation to the commission. That's a finding by planning board, whether you agree with the waiver of the acreage from 10 to 2 point, whatever, 10. So that's has to be a separate motion. So let's let you
That'd be a
finish
separate
this
motion.
one.
Let's finish
You can
this
go back
motion
and do
first.
that one.
We have a pending motion, we have a second as amended. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yes, no.
Do you oppose the motion?
Yes, I'm opposed.
Okay. So we have 6 to 1.
It's not clear enough to me. I think it's going to create a lot of confusion.
Okay. The motion passes 6 to 1. Next, the issue is about the acreage.
It's pretty standard RPD.
Staff presented its reason for finding that the reduction is appropriate. Would you tell them the reason you find the reduction
Let's just do a motion that and find that the planning board finds that it's appropriate to reduce the square footage from 10 acres to 2.1 for the plan development request.
We have
Or you
historically.
can't, or not do a finding, you just need to do.
We have historically done that, right?
Yes, we
I
have,
mean,
because most of we waive anyway.
almost no 10-acre parcel in
Yes.
West Palm Beach right now. And so we have done many for 2 acres and smaller. And so that's more technical issue. Does anyone have a concern about that?
I'll move it. I'll move a reduction of the RPD from the required 10 acres to 2.1, which we've done several times in the past.
Okay, we have a motion. Have we a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you all. We have 2 other cases to hear now, so. All right, I'm going to call Planning Board case number 2025.
I move to continue.
Thanks, everybody. John, did you like how they kept saying, and we're going to vote to deny the request of John Schmidt? It must have been mentioned 35 times as we screwed up all our motions.
If only had it. If only we had AI still going.
Free press.
Thank you.
Okay, we were ready to deny 2025 a couple of times by mistake, so we're just going to do it and move on to the
please
next one.
don't.
It just saved time, John.
I ask
Give
you to
high
reconsider
points
that, please.
High points for efficiency and presentation.
All right, we'll do. Good evening, my name's
Full
John
5
Rich.
minutes, whatever you need of that 5 minutes, John, you take.
I'm an in-house certified planner with the Gunster Law Firm here in West Palm. We're excited to bring you this opportunity for another residential development within the Curry Mixed Use District. We have the various team members here, but I specifically want to recognize Amrose Zakarni. He's the Senior Vice President of Development for Related Group. He's our client and the applicant, as well as the developer for the project before you this evening. This application, it's a level 3 site plan review, for, including variances for 2001 North Flagler. And as you're well aware, the planning board has the authority for, within the CMUD regulations, to grant all site plans and
so we get
variances.
to-
So congratulations, as you remember.
You just caught us in a bad mood is all.
The property is located at the northwest corner of Butler Street and North Flagler Drive, consists of 0.78 acres. It's currently occupied by a 1-story, 9,934 square foot medical office building and surface parking, as you can see there. And this is a street level view from the corner of Butler and North Flagler. The site has a Curry Mixed Use District Core 1 zoning designation. CMUD is intended to provide a compact pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development between Curry Park and Northwood Village. Specifically, Core 1 is the larger parcels located along the west side of Flagler. These are characterized with the highest density and highest building heights within CMUD. The 2001 North Flagler Drive site will be completely redeveloped with multifamily residential consisting of 90 units, has residential amenities and 185 structured parking spaces, has 3 components. There's a 5-story podium, there's the amenity deck on top of that podium, and that connects into a single-story amenity space, and then above that is 21 stories of residential use above. As you know, the City Commission made the policy decision to allow up to 306 feet in building height if you meet certain incentives. The proposed project is 27 floors or 27 stories and is at that 306 feet in total height, so we're complying with code there. The building complies with the required setbacks on all sides, including the expanded setback on North Flagler Drive, which is 15 feet. North Flagler is designated as a primary street within CMUD. And along both North Flagler as well as Butler Street, the tower portion is recessed as required by code, a minimum of 20 feet from the edge of that podium. Along North Flagler, we've actually significantly increased that recess, providing for an expansive amount of relief along that primary corridor. Vehicular access into the property is proposed on Butler Street, which is a secondary street. This avoids any vehicular ingress and egress off of North Flagler Drive. There is an existing curb cut on North Flagler that will be closed, And this will provide for one continuous pedestrian sidewalk from north of Butler Street, and therefore no vehicular conflict along that primary frontage. Pedestrian access is provided into the site from both Butler Street and North Flagler Drive, connecting into the public walkway along those street frontages. Just a little bit in terms of circulation, self-park or daily traffic would enter off of Butler Street, continue straight ahead, and that's the ramp up into the parking garage. They would exit through that same driveway. Valet vehicles, they would pull into the vehicular pickup and drop-off area in front of the lobby here. There's kind of a traffic circle or roundabout there. You can see that flow of traffic. Valet would exit out of the garage, pick up, and then continue up into the garage after someone has dropped off their vehicle. So you can see that. And then service vehicles will utilize an existing platted alleyway that runs along our west property line. This alley is utilized for a number of utilities. It also serves as services diagonal parking to the property to the west, and it is parking access for existing residential properties to the northwest. So we're going to utilize that existing service alley that is a platted public alley, again along our west, and access the service and loading there. Here's an overall rendering of the proposed development, as well as some details about some of the materials. The building is organized in a podium and tower configurations consistent with CMUD regulations. As discussed previously, it's a 5-story podium with 22 floors above it. The building features a modern aesthetic, but it has warm neutral color palette and has brown metallic elements to it. This design incorporates a substantial amount of glazing that you can see here. The concrete slab edges that are part of the deep balconies, which the balconies have clear railings to enhance that depth, and the facade articulation create that layered and horizontal rhythm within the massing. There is a substantial planar break here in the center of the tower, and along with that balcony configuration almost gives the appearance as if it's 2 towers, but it is one structure above that podium. While the podium does contain structured parking, it is lined with residential units entirely along its east facade along North Flagler Drive, and those residential units wrap the corners at Butler as well as on the north side. And I'll go into detail a little bit more on some of the facade elements. But as you know, and we talked about, CMUD allows for 306 feet in the case of Core 1, subject to an a la carte menu of incentives. We are choosing the 2 incentives that you see on the screen here. The first is a $3.75 million payment, which will be towards the construction and ongoing operations of Curry Park, which is located immediately to our west or to our east. And then there will be an additional $1.125 million provided to the city's transit service and mobility fund. So that's nearly $4.9 million in investment from this project in CMUD, as well as the city's broader mobility goals. So pretty substantial investment. As mentioned before, CMUD regulations are revised to require review and approval by you, the planning board. As part of this process, you're also given the ability to grant variances, and we are requesting 4 variances as part of this. The first 2 are in regards to uses on the ground floor as well as uses along the frontage, specifically the parking structure. There's actually no requirement for this portion of North Flagler Drive, despite it being designated as a primary street. But there is a requirement of 40% along Butler Street, which is a secondary. And in addition to that, there's a requirement that 100% of the parking garage be lined by habitable space. Given the significance of North Flagler, the design team really focused its efforts on that street frontage, and they placed the lobby, and I'll show this on a floor plan here in a second, but they placed the lobby fronting onto Flagler Drive, and then again, focused those residential liner units on Flagler as well. In those areas absent of an active use, they're using glazing, perforated aluminum, and other architectural features like what you've seen and granted with some of the other projects within this district. It's important to enhance the building's street presence on Flagler. So again, we put the lobby space directly onto the North Flagler frontage to the extent possible. And that accounts for approximately 47% of the building's frontage. We left Butler Street, the less significant secondary street, to be used for vehicular ingress and egress, as well as the circulation and valet. But again, on the upper floors, we focused those residential units on Flagler Drive, and then there's a small portion on Butler Street that does not have the garage or habitable space liner. So if you take all of those and put them into table form, you can see our variance requests here. Along North Flagler, we're required 100% of the garage. We're at 46.9. On Butler, the ground floor is required 40. We do not have anything on the ground floor. That's where we focused all the circulation and ingress egress. Again, that's the secondary street. And then on the upper floors facing the garage, we're at 32.76, where those residential units wrap around the corners. That leaves us a variance of 67.24%. So again, really focused on Flagler, the most prominent. In terms of what to do or how to mitigate the locations of those variances, what we did was we started to look at and conceptualize how we can make this space meet the intent of the regulations without actually being an enclosed space. And we ended up using a similar concept to that which was done with the Ritz-Carlton residences located south of here and approved a little while ago. And what we're proposing is that there would be an open air display of public art and landscaping that would engage the pedestrians along the public sidewalks of both Flagler Drive and Butler Street. This will also give a more open feel to that public realm within those spaces and allows for a transition in grade. There's pretty substantial to accommodate floodplain elevations from the street level elevation to our required finished floor. So by providing for this additional space and allowing it to step back before we get into the actual finished floor of the lobby and so forth, we're able to achieve that grade change and make it pretty comfortable. So these are the conceptual images, and then this is a more detailed rendering. While it doesn't have an enclosed open space or an enclosed active space, I think you can see here that it's a more open active space that interacts with the public along that public sidewalk and encourages the engagement with the art. There'll be seating there and so forth. The next variance pertains to horizontal encroachments. Balconies are allowed to encroach 5 feet within to a required setback. In order to provide a little bit more reasonable and usable balcony along the east facade, we are proposing to increase just within these small triangles at these little points of the balconies here. At that location, those balconies are 6 feet 6 inches, so that necessitates a variance of 1 foot 6 inch. Provides for a little bit more space to put in tables and chairs within there. We want the balconies to be usable, active, people, eyes on the street, and so forth. Again, this is the east facade. It faces Flagler. The intercoastal is to our east, so there's no adjacent properties that are being impacted. The last variance is along the west property line. This is the public alley that I was talking about. It's a public platted alley. It provides vehicular access to the adjacent properties to our west, as well as there's further properties along the north here that also utilize it. And then there's also utilities underground here. And with the property being situated on the corner, we wanted to focus our services, the loading and everything like that, to this west facade that faces this. It is a traditional, utilitarian type of alley. So that's where we wanted to put those, less desirable elements of the project along there. That leaves our frontages to those active uses and those really nice design spaces. But to do that, we would not be able to plant landscaping within that 5 foot setback along the alley. It would cause conflicts with the service vehicles utilizing the alley as well as the utilities. So we are requesting a variance. We are meeting the 5 foot setback. However, we are asking not to put in shade trees and things like that within the service alley. And I think that's pretty typical of what you would see downtown and so forth, that this utilitarian alley wouldn't necessarily be lined with landscaping. So we do have a sidewalk that runs the length of that alleyway that provides for emergency egress out of the stairwells and so forth. There is a landscape strip to separate that sidewalk from the actual vehicular circulation areas, but there's not enough space, and it wouldn't be feasible to put any shade trees within there. So that's where we're asking for the variance. The application before you complies with all the applicable standards of the city's ZLDRs. The applicable sections are there on the screen. And we're excited about this opportunity to bring another project. We've reviewed staff's recommendation. We agree with the conditions of approval that they've outlined, and we appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions of the applicant? Any questions besides from Will?
I just had,
He just had a question about the garbage.
I was going to ask, is this about garbage pickup?
no garbage. Just
Because I don't know if John Schmidt's not here anymore, so I'm kidding.
So just a question. So is the alley wide enough for a fire truck?
So the alley won't be utilized for fire trucks. And the city's fire marshal has reviewed the project, and we've satisfied all their comments. They're satisfied with utilizing the public frontages, so Butler and Flagler Drive would be their staging areas. They wouldn't go down the alley. I mean, there's not the need for that. And they're able to do that. They're able to afford some flexibility based upon the sprinklering of the building and things like that. So they're happy with what's been provided.
And then the renderings that you showed with the foliage underneath, I mean, that's going to be live foliage, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that more than offsets what you can't put in the back on the alley.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not putting shade trees under the overhang, but yes, all that under there is live material. Yes.
A quick question myself, John. I know. Every now and then, just to be clear, since we're so sensitive to height issues, this you can build a right when you take advantage of those incentives.
Correct.
So
306
we're not
feet.
giving a variance on the height. We're
Correct.
simply accepting the incentives that you.
Correct. We are complying with the Core 1 height allowance by utilizing those two incentives that I mentioned.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, may we hear from staff? I'm so sorry, Jason, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a very small question regarding the greenery and the active use on the ground level. Just out of curiosity, was that an aesthetic decision to not have that enclosed and to include that in the potential? I love it. I think it's an awesome addition to the space, but the variance that you're requesting for it, is that purely aesthetic?
It's aesthetic, but it's also functional.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we had this experience with the other project to our south of to put an enclosed space in there, and again, this is a secondary street frontage along Butler. The focus was to allow that frontage to serve as the vehicular circulation ingress egress, and to put an enclosed space in there wasn't really going to function very well, and it, you know, the space itself wouldn't do very well because it would be completely separated from the lobby and everything else within the building. It'd be kind of this freestanding space that it wouldn't serve very well. So this kind of creates that engaging space, but it has a more open feel to it.
It's nice to see that because I feel like it adds a sense of place to a lot of these projects that we could probably bring in more of. So that's
Yeah, I really like that too, John.
Thank you.
Okay, staff.
All right, so good evening, Stephanie Gregory, Planning and Zoning Administrator, on behalf of the case manager, Louise Vincentini. John did a good job with all of the background and explaining the proposal, so I'm just going to flip forward real quick to the staff findings, and staff does find that this complies with the city's zoning and land development regulations sections 9455B, which is for the level 3 special review standards, as well as 9435C, the site design qualitative development standards, and lastly 9455D3 variance standards. Additionally, in January, the PPRC, the Plans and Plats Review Committee, reviewed this proposal, and the applicant addressed all of their comments and concerns, and included conditions of approval, which are in the staff report. So staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions this case, 2025, which is a level 3 special review with variances. And there would be 2 motions today, one for the level 3 special review and one for the variance. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. Any questions of staff? Excuse me, any questions of staff, right? Jasmine. Okay. Would anyone from the public wish to be heard? I had a card, Paul Rempel, was this the one you wanted to speak to? And then David Thomas, did you want to speak or wanted me to read it? Okay, God bless you. All right. It's been one of those nights. All right.
It's going well. I'm not saying anything.
I know, right? Right. All right, then we'll bring it back to the board. Does anyone have any concerns or issues with this project? No.
No, I think it's a great building. I think the
about
thoughtful design.
It's 10 blocks from my home.
Yeah. I think John needs to program his AI not to have European license plates on the cars.
I didn't follow that.
Mindless chatter.
Yeah,
I think it's a thoughtful design. I really like it, and good job with it.
Yeah, John, really a lot of nice, thoughtful things in this. It showed.
Yeah, I would add that
Congratulations to the team.
this is one of the few examples of where the variance actually enhances, the variance request is enhancing the aesthetic and qualitative outcome. And I would even, recommend that maybe there's even more variation, especially like relative to the balconies. I think it's very creative, and the ground, that it's so much better having something that opens up to the public realm versus just kind of walling it off. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a home run. All right, then we have 2 motions we need to pass.
Sure.
Who wants to go first?
I move that the planning board grant the variances to the city's zoning and land development regulations as listed in the staff report dated May 12, 2026, associated with the planning board case number 2025, and requested by Brian Seymour, Esquire, and John P. Roach of Gunster on behalf of 2001 North Flagler Drive owner, LLC. The motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby make finding of fact that the application complies with all of the applicable criteria in Article 2, Section 94-38D6 of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, ZLDR.
Okay, we have a motion. Have we a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Conditions.
I'm sorry.
Are there conditions on the variance or on the next one? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Are we good on this one then?
We're good.
Okay, then it's passed unanimously. All right, we have a second motion.
All right. We're doing the granting the level 3, right? Okay. I move that the planning board grant planning board case number 2025, a request by Brian M. Seymour, Esquire, and John P. Roach of Gunster on behalf of 2001 North Flagler Drive owner, LLC, the approval of a level 3 special review for the construction of a 90-unit multifamily residential development generally located at 2001 North Flagler Drive as presented to the board. This motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing, along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes finding of fact that the application complies with each of the applicable special review standards found in Section 94-55B2 of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations. In addition, this recommendation is made subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report dated May 12, 2026. I move that these conditions are necessary to ensure the compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning and land development regulations and consistency with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're down to our last case. And take whatever part of the 10 minutes you need to finish this up for us.
We'll make it quick. Steve's favorite show starts at 9:30.
That's right, not gonna make it.
I'm gonna get home and watch it.
Good evening, board members. Lindsay Jean-Louis with Urban Design Studio on behalf of the Palm Lake Baptist Association as the owner and the Coulter Group LLC as the applicant. Here before you tonight, we have a request for a voluntary annexation of an 8.54 acre parcel into the city of West Palm Beach from unincorporated Palm Beach County. Consistent with that request is a future land use map amendment to assign the multifamily land use designation, and also consistent is to assign a zoning designation of multifamily 32, which is a consistent zoning district with that multifamily land use designation. I wanted to note that there are separate applications for site plan review and a parking waiver that are going to be reviewed by the City Commission and ultimately approved by your West Palm Beach PPRC staff via the Affordable Workforce Housing Overlay Program. And here is the site located at the northeast corner of North Haverhill Road and 45th Street, currently developed with a church that's roughly 14,000 square feet. In the overall site vicinity, to our north and west, we have the Grand Mercy Park subdivision. Immediately to our east, we have the Lake Arjaro apartments. To the south, we have Parkside Residence Apartments and the Robinson Village Apartments, which are both in the city of West Palm Beach. Further south, you have the Cacti Ballpark of the Palm Beaches. And then note on the north side of 45th Street, you have the Prime Corner CPD, which also is included in the West Palm Beach jurisdiction. So the church buildings were constructed in 1964 and 1974, again totaling 13,890 square feet. There were 2002 approvals for rezoning from residential high to residential medium and a conditional use to expand that church campus. However, those expansions were never constructed, so currently the site's just developed with those 1964 and 1974 original construction. So the image that you see on the right-hand side of the screen here is sort of the orientation of the county and city jurisdictions. As you can see, highlighted in red is the city of West Palm Beach boundary. Highlighted in blue is the city of Riviera Beach boundary. And what's not highlighted is an unincorporated Palm Beach County. And you see our site, which is in the middle of that unincorporated area. We're requesting an annexation to be included in that West Palm Beach boundary as indicated in red. As part of the annexation request, we have to comply with the Florida State Statutes, Chapter 171.43. This requires that a city may annex an area only if it meets the requirements of subsection 1 and the requirements of subsection 2 or subsection 3. We actually individually comply with each requirement. Notably subsection 1, that the area must be contiguous and compact. Our site is a singular rectangular site meeting the compact requirement, and we're contiguous to West Palm Beach on our south boundary. We also meet subsection 2C as our site is developed with a church meeting that 60% of urban development area required, and subsection 3B, which requires that our site is bordered by 60% of its perimeter of urbanized areas. The site is essentially surrounded by fully developed urbanized areas with residential uses all around. And we also comply with subsection of the Florida Statutes 171.44, which requires that, again, the site is reasonably compact and contiguous. As you see in the map below, we're contiguous to West Palm on our south side. Even separated by 45th Street, the state statutes actually define that the right-of-way doesn't constitute, or does satisfy the statutory contiguity requirements. In our annexation application, we're required to notify the county of our annexation request. On October 23rd, 2025, the county actually provided us a letter stating that they confirmed review of the state statutes, Chapter 171, and they found no inconsistencies with our request. Their only note was to provide right-of-way protection for their expanded intersection standards, which we do comply with our site plan. This shows the future land use. The site is currently designated medium residential, 5 units an acre in the county. This land use designation does allow multifamily uses. So again, we're trying to find that sort of lateral multifamily land use assignment, which is the multifamily FLU designation in the city of West Palm, and that's our proposed land use request. We've prepared a traffic study specific to that land use request, which identifies the maximum development potential. And based on that traffic study, it was determined that all the significantly impacted roadway links are going to be satisfactory and operate acceptably during the short range and long range projections. As part of the rezoning, the county current designation is residential medium density. Again, just kind of finding that consistent zoning designation, we're requesting a rezoning to multifamily 32. And as you can see, it's consistent with that multifamily 32 designation. That's actually within the city boundary immediately to our south. As you can see in the staff report and reviewed there, staff has recommended approval of our application, and we're consistent with the future land use amendment standards, as well as the rezoning standards. We would like, if needed, to be able to use backup items and materials in this presentation, but that concludes the presentation for this portion. We have members of the church as well as the development team prepped to answer any questions should you have them.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Let me start with you, Sam.
So is the church going to maintain ownership of the property?
The culture group will be acting as contract purchaser to develop
Say that one more time. Who's going to be purchasing?
Culture.
The Culture Group, LLC.
The Culture Group. So it's
in the bottom right corner of their screen there. These folks.
Oh, Coulter.
Excuse us for
Got it. Okay.
Listen to them.
Got it. Got it. Okay. No questions right now.
Okay. Any other questions besides Will? Patrick, Jean? No. Okay. No questions. Will, any questions?
You know, if I had feelings, they'd be hurt, but I don't. So it's.
You don't have questions. You don't have feelings.
No, it's not. I'll ask staff.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you so much. May we hear from staff?
Good evening. Alex Hansen, City's Comprehensive Planner with the City of West Palm Beach's Planning Division. Lindsay already touched up on most of the items associated with this. Just a reminder, there's 3 cases. One is the annexation. The other one is the rezoning. And then we have also the future land use amendment, or annexation, future land use amendment, and rezoning. He already went over some of the specifics with regards to the site and some of the surrounding uses, as well as the future land use designations. Staff has determined that the proposed annexation does comply with the requirements of Chapter 171, which is the Florida statutes that pertain to annexations. We have also determined that as far as the future land use amendment, I'm sorry, there's a lot of slides here. We have also determined that for the future land use amendment, the amendment does comply with at least one of the 5 standards found in the future land use policy 115 of the city's comprehensive plan. And with regards to the rezoning, we found that the petition does meet all of the 8 rezoning standards found in section 94-32 of the zoning and land development regulations. Lindsay mentioned that we notified Palm Beach County about this annexation, and they provided a letter indicating that they had found no inconsistencies with the state statutes. We have also notified what is called the Intergovernmental Plan Amendment Review Committee, which is a series of municipalities. All of the surrounding municipalities were notified about this. To date, there have been no objections. We did receive some inquiries from Palm Beach Gardens. Also, the site has been sign has been posted, as well as everybody within 500 feet has been notified. But as I indicated, staff is recommending approval of all 3 cases.
Okay, any questions of staff?
It's one way of making land, isn't it?
I know, we're expanding our city. Good for you. Do you know what they plan for this site ultimately? I mean, no, I didn't know that.
Yes, the applicant is proposing 318 residential units. There will be a workforce housing component included in it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I had one card from the public. Is it Vincent Gibbs? Yes. Do we wish to be heard? Come forward, sir.
How you guys doing today? I feel
Good.
like David going against Goliath. My thing is, he showed you guys all that about the South Side and all that there. Those of us who homestead, when you put that big building there, it's gonna choke us out. For one thing, my address is West Palm Beach. I pay my water bill in Revere Beach. And when we tell Revere something, they say it was West Palm, and then we tell West Palm, they say the county, and we always been left out. Even with that feces problem, they supposed to come to that church, the same church they gonna tear down. That's more than a church to us. That's a worshiping place. That's where we go to vote at. That's when the hurricanes come, everybody show up there for supplies and stuff. And it's only one way into Caribbean, and that there. Our kids have to walk all the way down and then to 45th Street. Never had a crossing guard. They got to cross 6 lanes of highway, then go to military, cross another 6 lanes to get to the Palm Beach Lakes High School. Right at the McDonald's and military in there, you look it up and see how many people done got killed trying to cross to go to the bus stop right there. Not only that, it's more than just about that. It's only one substation out there, a pump station. It got to pump Lake Ajara, like he said, Long Pine and Revere. Is also the way behind, it used to be Food Town, behind Food Town and all that. It's a lot more elements to just that building there. When our kids go by, how we know ain't nobody gonna grab them or something called, it's gonna be multiplex. Is it gonna turn into a project? Or is it gonna be a luxury building there? I got a 2-story house now. I can see the fireworks when the ballpark in. When you put that big building out, it's gonna choke us out. They already don't know we're there. They don't act like they do anyway. We're county. Where they gonna put their garbage cans at? Is it gonna be festive? Cause it is the county, got plenty of raccoons, possums. Is that gonna be a thing? They're gonna have a certain place to put the garbage can in that development? Is they gonna come out of the development to start breaking in our homes? You know, I'm not trying to get away from it. I'm not really crazy about them tearing down the Lord's house. If he can build that church to let us know that we still got a neighborhood still stand there, I'll be well more than for it, you know. But it's gonna be like you blocked us out and they already don't care about us. If I go to get I can't get if they running a special, giving a break for them in Revere, my address West Palm Beach, I can't receive any of that. But I pay for the fire departments, the libraries, and all that.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. Was there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? And if not, give the applicant a chance if you wish to address any of the issues that were raised. You may be seated.
How much traffic? Another thing is the traffic there. If you go there and we can't turn in there, you got to go way to 710 to come back.
You're raising a lot of good issues, but the issues before us are more narrow for tonight. You know,
It's just zoning. It's not a site plan.
it's who owns the property and the zoning. These issues will come before different groups in the future. This is but we'll give the applicant, if they wish, or someone from staff who wish to address some of these issues you raised just briefly, give you an opportunity, should you wish it. Why don't you come forward? And sir, you may be seated. Thank you for coming in. Or Alex, do you want to handle it?
So yes, we spoke with Mr. Gibbs before the hearing. He is currently in unincorporated Palm Beach County, so his property is not within the limits of the city of West Palm Beach. Some of the issues that he raised, for example, with regards to the children not being able to cross the street safely to go to school, we pointed out this is surrounded by 2 county roads. So some of those questions, some of those issues will be addressed in part by Palm Beach County. Again, from an access standpoint, there's no changes to the communities to the north, which is where Mr. Gibbs resides. His home, my understanding, is somewhere around here.
As soon as you turn in Caribbean, make a first right and a quick left, and I'm right.
You can visit him. Can you just, sir, here's the thing. Can you just tell him just briefly the nature of the project? Because one of his concerns was, this is going to be like the projects. Can you address that for him?
Well, and again, the cases today is the rezoning, the land use amendment, annexation. As we pointed out, the applicant spoke with him again about the nature of the development. This is a high-end product
and then we'll
that
call
the
the question.
applicant is proposing. Again, the units are not in front of the board right now, but again, we do not have concerns about any potential issues with the design of the building.
Thank you. Just briefly, if you could tell him whether you think this project will be good for his community.
Of course. Good evening, Ken Tuma with Urban Design Studio. Thank you for having me. We do have representatives of the church. Mr. Sicklin is here also, and he can answer any specific questions about the church. But let me address your comment, Mr. Chair. Yes, so Coulter is proposing a multifamily unit. They will be rental apartments. A portion of them will be workforce housing, meaning workforce housing in the definition that you're aware of, which is average minimum income. They will not be low housing. They'll be workforce housing for teachers, firefighters, planners, and landscape architects, right?
Baseball players.
But now that's only a portion of the units. The other portion of the units are going to be market rates. So it's what you're seeing as the product we're developing here.
Appreciate your coming.
Of course, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
At this point, if we have no other public speakers, we'll bring back to the board. Does anyone else have concern for these things? Sam, would these be 3 separate motions?
Yes.
3 separate?
Yes, Alex, you gave the motion? 3. Okay.
All right. Does someone want to take the lead? All in one. All right. Patrick, this has your name on it.
Just clarifying, do you want me to do a motion for 1 and then for 2, or can I read 1, 2,
Sam,
3?
do these need to be 3 independent motions or 1 single one?
Because there's only 1 page. We're just going to read all of this and note all 3 cases. Got it.
It could be a single. That's not like you, Sam. Usually make us do everything broken down.
I move that the planning board recommends to the city commission approval of a 3-part request by Urban Design Studios on behalf of the property owner, Palm Lake Baptist Association Incorporated, and the applicant, the Coulter Group LLC, for the following: planning board case number 2021, Annex 2509001, an annexation of 1 parcel totaling approximately 8.54 acres, located 5710 North Haverhill Road. Planning board case number 2021A, FLU 25090006, a future land use FLU map amendment to assign a multifamily MF future land use designation to the annex parcel, and planning board case number 2021B, RZ 2509001, a rezoning to assign a multifamily 32 MF 32 zoning designation to the annex parcel. The motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing, along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes findings of fact that the proposed annexation complies with Chapter 171 of the Florida statutes, that the proposed FLU map amendment complies with the required standards in policy 1.1.5 of the City of West Palm Beach Comprehensive Plan, and that the proposed rezoning complies with Section 9432A of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations.
Okay, we have a motion. Have we a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That then brings us to other business, unfinished business, new business. If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.